Chapter 461 Supporter. Listening to everyone's opposition, Naruto was expressionless and indifferent. He knew that his decision would definitely cause everyone's confusion, and even make everyone think that he was going to bring them into great danger. However, he knew that there was one more thing he had to do, and that was to find Mommy, who was working at the police station in the city of Bedlard. Now that the crisis has erupted, there are dead bodies wandering around, and the more crowded the place, the less hope people can survive. It was not easy for Naruto to meet the fourth daughter of Yan Yi, and there will never be a second such luck now. Moreover, Naruto also made a phone call to Mommy before, but found that the signal at this time has become very unstable, and it is very likely that the system of many radio signal towers has been paralyzed. Therefore, he had to go to the bed market in person to find Mommy and confirm her safety. Thinking of this, he asked aloud again, "I'm going to the bed market, who wants to come with me?" Hearing Naruto's stubborn words, everyone couldn't help but be stunned. After a long time, the world said aloud, "Naruto, are you trying to find Miss Asami?" Everyone looked puzzled. Naruto nodded slightly, "I have to save her." "That's good. I'll go with you." The world nodded in response. "I'm going too." Yan Yi didn't want to be left behind. He stepped forward and hugged Naruto's arm and shouted, "Although I'm useless at all, but now I just want to stay by Naruto's side, even if I can stay longer. I'll do it for a moment too. And me, Naruto, don't leave me." Otome also stepped forward and took his hand, "We are related." As soon as these words came out, everyone looked at Naruto and her with strange eyes. Otome smiled and hugged Naruto's hand proudly. "Hey, my sister is the one with Naruto, okay?" Gui Shin shouted towards Otome. Yan Yi looked embarrassed. Naruto was also a little helpless by the current situation. However, they were able to stand on his side, which made him very happy. After all, women who can take risks with them are women who are worthy of their own protection. Seeing this, Yazi couldn't help but covered her forehead, looked at Naruto and sighed helplessly, "I really underestimated you guy." Naruto smiled awkwardly, not knowing what Yako meant. "My father is also far away in a foreign dojo, and now he is free from worries. Since Naruto insists on going to the Bedmaster City, I will go together. I'm afraid you can't take care of so many girls, right?" The child suddenly smiled softly. Yan Yi and the girls all looked slightly gloomy. In this collapsed world, they were really just a burden to Naruto. Naruto patted the girls on the shoulders and smiled at Yazi. "Sister Yazi, I'm very happy that you can come with me, but there may be more dangers with me." Yako smiled lightly. "Naruto, we have witnessed the collapse of this world together, are we considered life and death companions? Besides, the feeling of fighting with you also makes me very happy, how can you say that?" Naruto was stunned for a moment, then nodded with a smile, and there was something more in his eyes when he looked at Yazi. "What a nice woman." At this moment, Shizuka, who had already heard Naruto and the others discussing the result, said, "If that's the case, I'll drive the car to the bed market. Anyway, Naruto saved my life, and I will always be there for you. Act as a free driver." Quote. And Gaochung Saya looked hesitant. She originally saw Kamuro Takaya in the car, and she had a good impression of him. She was also very happy, but she also knew that her life was saved by Naruto and Yazi, and she was the most at this time. What we should do is stick to Naruto and Yako's decision. However, the road ahead must also be full of crises. She believes that there will be more dangers waiting for Naruto and the others in the Bed Owner City. She wanted to speak to persuade her, but after seeing Naruto's firm expression, she couldn't speak, so she was stunned to open her mouth to say something but didn't dare to say it. At this moment, Shido Koichi suddenly waved to Naruto with a smile and said, "Naruto classmate, I think you are doing something wrong. As a teacher, should you listen to my advice?" "What?" "Huh." Naruto glanced at him with a slight frown. Shido Hiroichi pushed his glasses slightly, and a faint light flashed in the eyes behind the frame. "Naruto classmate, your decision is related to the lives of everyone in this car. If we all go to the bed city with you, you can't be alone when you are in danger, right? Naruto nodded slightly. Shido Hiroichi smiled lightly. So, I still recommend the most fair and equitable method. How about voting? If most of the people in the car choose to go elsewhere, how about you, Naruto, go to evacuation with us? This is advice given by an adult like me as a teacher. Vote. Naruto was stunned for a moment, then he looked around the rest of the classmates in the car, and found that their faces were full of fear, and at a glance, he knew that they would never support him. He shook his head helplessly. Teacher Wisteria, my decision will never be changed for anything. Sorry, you have to vote to do it yourself. Naruto classmate, you're too self-willed to act like this. Why are you immature at all? In such a dangerous world, we should choose rationally. Shido Koichi said. He turned to look at the rest of the classmates in the circle, shouted and asked, do you think so? Classmates. Yes. Teacher Wisteria is right, as expected of a teacher. What you think is thoughtful. Well, I agree with Mr. Wisteria too. This group of students who have no opinion at all have lost their ability to think. They think what Wisteria said is very reasonable. Although Naruto is very brave in comparison, everyone is not optimistic about him because his decisions are too willful. Too individualistic. Except for the women who knew Naruto who supported him, everyone else in the car echoed Koichi Wisteria. For a time, Naruto seemed to be abandoned by everyone. Seeing this, Miyamoto Rei on the side couldn't help being angry, and she couldn't help but stand up and scolded, you bastards. Don't you know who blocked the outside and let you in the car before? Don't you know who saved your life? Chapter 462 Naruto Get Off. Seeing her stand up to fight for her injustice, Naruto couldn't help but look at it differently. Forget it, since everyone disagrees, then we can just go our separate ways. Naruto waved his hand. To him, these people were just ordinary people rescued on a whim. They were afraid of death, and they wanted to. It is human nature to survive, and there is no need to drag them to risk. Clap clap. Shido Koichi suddenly applauded, looked at Naruto and smiled. Naruto classmate, I support your decision this time. I hereby wish you a smooth journey. Please get off. Huh. Naruto was slightly taken aback. He wondered if he had heard it wrong. What did this guy say? Let yourself get out of the car. Oto next to her couldn't help but stand up and scolded. Naruto finally got this car, right? Why do you want us to get off? Hey, we still have so many students here, so we can't all get off the bus. How many of you are occupying such a big car? So, I think it's the best way to aggrieve you to get off. Zidane Koichi said, do you think so? Classmates. Although some of the classmates felt that it was inappropriate to do so, although they were ashamed, in order to survive, they really should listen to Teacher Wisteria, so they did not speak. But there are still some people who are typical of revenge for kindness. In this crazy world, their psychology has been distorted by the horrible picture in front of them. Even if Naruto was a savior before, they are now just thinking about how to keep themselves alive. Therefore, Naruto's life and death, they don't care at all. So, they shouted in front of Koichi Wisteria's voice. Give the car. Let the car. Let the car. Don't hurt us. Get out of the car if you want to go. You take your Yangguan Road, and I take my single plank bridge. Various voices came and went, and Naruto frowned. Damn. Shizuka slammed on the brakes, the whole car suddenly braked forward, and the body slammed into an arc and stopped in the middle of the road. Naruto, what should we do now? Should we get them out of the car? Yazi said lightly, holding the long oak knife. Hey, it's against the law to use violence against us. As soon as Shido Hiroshi saw Yako's dangerous gaze, a look of fear flashed on his face, but he calmed down and shouted loudly, classmates, you won't just sit still, will you? All the classmates who supported Koichi Shido stood up one after another, looking at Yako and Naruto with an aggressive look. Naruto didn't expect things to change like this. These guys have been completely held by the nose of Shido Koichi. Shizuka stood up and came to Naruto's side, and said in a low voice, Naruto, let's leave first. We don't have to worry about them. I see a lot of abandoned vehicles ahead, we can find a better one. It's nothing to throw the bus at them. Naruto pondered for a while, looked at Zito, Hiroichi and the others, and curled his lips slightly. Okay, let's get out of the car and look for other cars, I'll leave it to you here. He didn't want to entangle too much. Instead of arguing with them here, or forcibly driving them out of the car, he might as well find another car by himself. After all, mommy can't afford it. Ha ha ha, classmate Naruto is really great. Then I will thank you for all the classmates here. Hearing this, Hiroichi Zito bowed slightly and bowed to Naruto in thanks. Naruto didn't bother to pay attention to him either. He was just a scoundrel who could only play tricks, and got off the bus after opening the door with a few girls. Yanyi, World, Otome, Heart, Yuko, Shizuka, all 6 came down with Naruto, and Takajo Saya was left hesitating. He looked at Naruto and Yuko, and at Komuro Taka and Shido Koichi. In the end, he bit Kiba slightly and said to Komuro, I will go with Naruto first. I will never be in a car with this kind of scum. I hope you can make the right judgment too. After speaking, she jumped off the bus and followed Naruto's footsteps. In the car, Miyamoto Rei saw the backs of Naruto and the others leaving, and bit Kiba slightly, just about to pull Xiaoshi down, but found that he couldn't move. She couldn't help but frown and said, Xiaoshi, don't you want to get out of the car? Komuro Takaya held her tightly and said, I don't think we really need to take risks with Naruto and the others now. The most important thing now is to go our own way. Little room, but if I'm with this kind of scum, I'd rather go to a more dangerous place. Miyamoto Rei shouted after struggling. Calm down, Lee, Xiaoshi called out, pulling her back and saying, once we get to a safe place, we can part ways with him and find another way out. For now, bear with me, Lee. Miyamoto Rei wanted to say more, but saw that a student who could drive a car had already gone to the driver's seat to start the car, closed the door, and started to drive forward. Damn it, she bit Kiba and looked at Koichi Wisteria with a displeased expression. A smug smile flashed across Shido Hiroshi's face, looked at Miyamoto Rei and said with a light smile, how is it? Don't you want to be with us in the end? I've already said that there is no future with classmate Naruto. By the way, Lee, I am very optimistic about you. As long as you can follow my instructions in the future, we will definitely be able to walk out of a road full of hope. Go away, Lee roared at him viciously, sitting alone in the seat, sullen. Komuro Takaya also had a very bad impression of him, and sat down with Lee with a cold snort to discuss the next thing. Shido Hiroichi was startled, and after taking a slight step back, he stopped talking, but he looked at the figures of Miyamoto Rei and Komuro Takaya, and there was a constant flash of cold light in his eyes. Stinky bitch, son of a bitch. It's amazing to be able to point guns. Look at me playing with you like this. And Xiao, when the time comes, I will let you know the consequences of daring to go against Lao Su. At this time, Naruto and the girls were standing on the wide road, and when they saw Saya who was catching up behind them, they couldn't help but wonder a little, why didn't you leave with them? Following me is in great danger. Shay ran up and said, since I have chosen to be with you, I naturally have my own reasons, and I can also make suggestions for you. I know a lot of knowledge. Chapter 463. Are you sitting still? Really? Naruto smiled slightly. All the girls looked at her in unison. Saya's face turned a little yuhi, and he was stared at by so many beautiful and outrageous girls, and said a little uncomfortable, I am a genius in the school. The daughter of the Gaocheng family. It will definitely come in handy. Well, it doesn't matter anyway, as long as I'm with me, I'll never let you guys have an accident. Naruto smiled, with a bright and confident smile on his face. Seeing this smile, Yan Yi and the girls couldn't help being stunned. They looked at each other and saw a sense of admiration in each other's eyes. Saya was also stunned for a while, only to think that Naruto's smile was so reassuring. If everything is the darkness shrouded in everyone's hearts, then Naruto's smile is the sunshine that tears apart all the darkness. Yaozi held a long knife and pointed forward. Let's go. There are many cars for us to choose from. Hem. Everyone responded and walked towards the sparsely parked cars in front of them. A yuhi-colored small car was in front of him. Naruto stopped the girls and said vigilantly, "You walk behind me, be careful of the danger." Except for Yuko, the girls hid behind Naruto and followed him cautiously. Approaching the car, fortunately, no dead body appeared, but in the cab of the car, a half-dead body was lying there. Fly. This one won't work. The next one. Naruto saw the women behind him all looking like they were about to vomit. He waved his hand and had to give up the car. Because it was on a remote suburban road, there were not many dead bodies, and until now Naruto has not encountered those dead bodies. In front of it is a high slope, and there is a very wide off-road vehicle parked on the side of the road at the bottom of the high slope. All are numbers. Mitsubishi Pajero. Shizuka looked slightly happy. I can seat 6 people in this car. But even if we have 8 people in it, it will never be crowded. After saying that, she was slightly excited. Ran over. Wait, I'll go there first, there may be danger over there. Naruto hurriedly grabbed the school doctor, seeing her completely unprepared, and suddenly had a headache. The crowd followed Naruto and slowly approached the off-road vehicle. The door on one side of the car was tightly closed, and the door on the other side seemed to be open. After coming to the side of the car, he was the first to look inside the car, only to find that it was actually empty. There was no one, and the car key was still in it. He was slightly overjoyed, but the next moment he suddenly heard an exclamation from behind. Ah! Be careful, Naruto. A dangerous breath came from behind, and Naruto realized what it was without even looking. Dead body. The dead body that suddenly appeared, and it was the dead body that just jumped down from the high slope. If you are attacked by this guy, most people will definitely be bitten off their necks. Moreover, the speed it brings out when it rushes down from above is not something that ordinary people can avoid at all. However, Naruto is not an ordinary person. He is the 6th generation of Hokage in the Hokage world, and he is the fastest in the ninja world. Even if chakra is not released, facing this level of attack is completely unnecessary. The next moment, when all the girls exclaimed, he didn't turn his head, just raised his foot. Boom! With a muffled sound, Naruto's feet hit the mouth of the dead body, and the dead body flew backward fiercely, slammed into the side of the high slope with a bang, and finally got up again. Seeing Naruto kicking the dead body, the girls couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Seeing him deal with the dead body so easily, everyone's eyes had a look of admiration. Brother Naruto is amazing, Gui Shin exclaimed excitedly. Naruto smiled lightly. Everyone, get in the car and get ready. Shizuka, try to start the car, the guys around seem to be coming. Yeah, okay. Shizuka nodded, shaking her huge breasts and squeezed into the car, and the rest of the people also got into the car. At this time, more than 10 dead bodies really gathered towards Naruto. Most of these people were wealthy people who could afford to drive a car before their lives, and there were also some beautiful women in gold and silver. It's a pity that they have all turned into dead bodies now, and there is only a hideous look on their faces. Watching them come here step by step, Naruto took out his dagger and rushed towards them quickly. Where the dagger was swung, the dead bodies were divided into 2 halves, almost in less than 10 seconds. More than 10 all the dead bodies fell to the ground and were cut into several pieces. At this time, Shizuka also turned the car key, the car banged and started very successfully. Get in the car, Naruto. As the car was driving, before the front door was closed, Shizuka immediately waved her arm towards Naruto. Naruto flicked, and a shadow flashed in an instant. The next moment, his body had already got into the car, huddled with Shizuka. This car is very good. Naruto, Shizuka said happily. Just sit on my side, there are already 4 people in the back. She turned over to Naruto and asked Naruto to sit down, but because of the limited space in the driver's seat, she couldn't drive after Naruto sat down. In the end, Shizuka bit Kiba slightly, so she had to fight a little, and then lifted her upturned buttocks towards Naruto. Sat down on his lap. Naruto, I'm sorry, let me sit on top of you first. Shizuka clenched the steering wheel with both hands, her soft and elastic buttocks sitting tightly against Naruto's crotch, that kind of incomparably soft Naruto's heart skipped a beat. No, it's fine, he said slightly embarrassedly. He glanced to the side, and in the passenger seat were the sisters Yanyi and Gui Shin, who were sitting on top of each other just like Naruto and Shizuka, but Gui Shin was petite and asked her to sit on Yanyi's seat. There was no pressure on Yi. Naruto is different, the school doctor Shizuka is already an adult, and her body is not as full as a little girl like Gui Shin. At this time, Naruto was sitting on her plump buttocks, and immediately felt a little uncomfortable. Calm down. He doesn't have the ability to sit still. Chapter 464 Embarrassing Up and Down Position. Naruto, I'm pressing you down, I'm sorry. Shizuka said while driving, feeling the bodies of the two being closely connected at the moment, her face slightly yuhi. Naruto shook his head awkwardly. It's nothing, just concentrate on driving. Yeah, but, Naruto, you will definitely be uncomfortable, right? Shizuka lifted her sweet buttocks slightly and moved a little bit, but because the two of them were leaning too closely, or Shizuka's buttocks were too plump. So at this time, after she moved a bit, it didn't have any effect at all, but instead made the place where the two touched more friction. Naruto couldn't take it anymore. He smelled the fragrance of the long, pale yellow hair of the school doctor Shizuka. He didn't know what brand of shampoo she was using. Okay, it's better not to move, Shizuka-sensei. Naruto rested his hands on the seat, and it was not easy to hug her, so he could only shrink his body like this, trying not to let the objects below him touch him. However, the more Naruto wanted to avoid embarrassment, the more his body reacted involuntarily. At this time, he hurriedly turned his head to talk to the sun, trying to distract himself, but when he turned his head, he saw a nosebleed scene. She was squeezed in the middle by Yanzi Yanye and the world, and because the four of them were a little crowded together, her body was pushed forward slightly. At this time, her pair of E and even F cups, which surpassed the D cups of Yuzi and Yanye, were obviously squeezed out to the front. Because her breasts were too large, the collar of the white school uniform was also blocked. Open to reveal the deep ravine inside, Naruto could even see the two white lace on the huge mountain of meat. Can't stand it. In Naruto's line of sight was this incomparably seductive picture, and on his body sat an even more irresistible tender body. At this time, he clearly felt a little heat in his lower abdomen. Fortunately, at this time, Yako asked a question. Naruto, shall we just go to the bed market like this? I think it's almost night now, should you take a rest and find a place to fill your stomach? Naruto nodded slightly when he heard it, and felt quite right, but now that mommy is really urgent, he would rather everyone work a little harder and be more tired, and he must first confirm Mammy's safety. Thinking of this, he slowly shook his head again. Let's go to a place to get some food first, and then go to the main city after a short rest after eating. Time can't be delayed any longer. Yazi was stunned for a moment, looking into Naruto's eyes. She suddenly smiled. Okay, we'll listen to you. Yeah, thank you. Naruto smiled at her. At this moment, the school doctor Shizuka suddenly let out a soft cry, slammed on the brake, and suddenly stopped quickly. Due to inertia, Naruto leaned forward and leaned on her at once, and his hands couldn't help grabbing forward, hugging her whole body. With Wenxiang Nephrite Jade in hand, Naruto's heart jumped again, and the flame in his body burst out. What's wrong? To avoid embarrassment, Naruto asked hurriedly, looking forward at the same time. At this time, Yanyi also exclaimed slightly, No, Naruto. The front is blocked. Almost all those monsters. Gui Shin was so frightened that she turned her head and threw herself into her sister's arms. Find a path to move forward. Naruto also realized that it was not good, and said quickly. Because he saw the end of the road in front of him, he quickly entered the road section of the main city. Yuhi was surrounded by a dense group of dead bodies under the green light. There were hundreds of people. In such a scene, even if everyone is driving an off-road vehicle, it is difficult to rush past. At present, it is only possible to enter the urban area from some of the surrounding alleys. But there are also them on the side road. When they are stopped, they can't even make a U-turn. Shizuka said. It's all right. If I'm blocked by them in the alley, I'll get out of the car and open the way. Naruto said calmly. Don't hesitate anymore. Trust me. Naruto moved, and the body she was hugging shook. Shizuka let out a soft whimper, and Yuhi couldn't help but dizzy on her jade face, so she had to drive her car into the side lane. Naruto, what are you holding against me? Shizuka asked with a Yuhi expression while driving. In fact, she had already realized what Naruto's object was, and she just wanted to ask it. Just want Naruto to take it back. However, she obviously got one thing wrong, that is, how could the desire of a man subside so easily? In particular, Naruto's reaction was stimulated by her extremely smooth and elastic body when the two were close together at this time. This is enough to make Naruto unbearable. At this time, after what she said, Yanyi and Guixin on the side also looked at them. Yanyi pouted slightly, looking a little dissatisfied. Naruto spread his hands helplessly, but the bottom suddenly fell into the middle of teacher Shizuka's two thighs, protruding high, against her mysterious area. Moreover, because Shizuka needed to step on the brakes and the accelerator, she also lifted up her narrow gray-black skirt, and now it only covered the flesh-colored pants underneath her, and Naruto's high-spirited protrusion just stood outside her flesh-colored trousers. As the car continued to shake, the hidden areas of the two were constantly rubbing. That strange feeling almost made Shizuka's body soften, but she didn't have time to care about these things at this time, because she had to watch the drive ahead very seriously. If there was a slight accident, she might be killed by those dead bodies. It would be really bad if you were surrounded by dead bodies in such a narrow alley. So, even though her heart beat faster due to the strange stimulation under her, and she gasped slightly, she still tried her best to control herself not to be confused by her body's reaction. Well, wow, not good. At this moment, 3 dead bodies suddenly appeared at the corner of the road ahead. Shizuka was slightly distracted by the stimulation. The brakes under her feet were just pressed, and they had already hit on them. Bang bang bang. 2 dead bodies were knocked out immediately, but another dead body was hit, and then slammed onto the roof in front of the car. The dead body, which was not fatally attacked, suddenly waved his arm. Through the windshield, I grabbed Shizuka and Naruto in the driver's seat. Chapter 465 Spiral Energy. Naruto was slightly surprised when he saw this. If he was caught by this guy at this time, Shizuka who was sitting on his body would definitely be caught. He didn't want to see such a scene where the incense disappears and Jade died. At the moment when the dead body's hands smashed the windshield, Naruto suddenly stretched out his palm and aimed at a piece of glass that came suddenly. Slag in the big hands of the dead body, a faint and rapid energy fluctuation suddenly came out from the palm. Ah! Naruto gave a deep drink, and all the chakras that could be mobilized in the body burst out at this moment. Rasengan. The next moment, a rapidly rotating airflow suddenly formed in Naruto's palm, but the chakra in Naruto's body is too small, and it is not enough to use Rasengan in a complete state. At this time, he can only slightly condense a chakra turbulence condensed by a small amount of chakra, which is less than half of the power of Rasengan. However, Naruto has studied Rasengan for many years, and his understanding of Rasengan has reached an unparalleled level. Even if his chakra is very rare at this time, he cannot condense the most powerful Rasengan, but even so, he is using the energy in his body at this time. A trace of chakra, swirling according to the principle of Rasengan, the spiral strength generated is enough to bounce back all the attacks in front of you. Shizuka turned back and threw herself on Naruto's chest with a face full of horror. Her head burrowed into his arms, and a scream came from her mouth. No! At the moment when everyone in the car thought that the two of Naruto were in danger, from Naruto's palm, a powerful spiral energy suddenly attacked. Boom! The light blue chakra light was fleeting, and almost no one noticed. Everyone only saw a light flashing on Naruto's palm. They thought it was their eyesight, and then they saw the glass of the dead body. The slag spun backwards and flew out in a way that completely violated the laws of physics. All the girls were shocked. Boom! The dead body fell to the ground, and Naruto slapped the school doctor Shizuka who was lying on top of him, reminding, "Okay, it's alright, hurry up and drive." Shizuka was stunned for a moment, only to realize that there was no pain in her body. She blinked her big watery eyes and looked at Naruto, only to realize that her entire body was actually stuck on Naruto's body. Was originally sitting on his lap with his back to him, but now it has become a frontal hugging him. The pair of huge meat mountains in front of the chest were pressing against Naruto's chest at this time, almost touching Naruto's face. And her thighs, which were as round as jade, had long been separated, curling up around Naruto's waist. What made them even more embarrassed was that Naruto's body was bulging high at this time, just not dying. The top is in the most secret place between her legs. Being held back by the huge foreign object, Shizuka's whole body could not help but tremble slightly. That strange feeling made her whole body hot, and her face became Yuhi. "Ah, hug, I'm sorry, Naruto, I'll drive right away." When she came back to her senses, she hurriedly turned around to hold the steering wheel and started the car again. However, just as Shizuka turned around and sat down with her sweet buttocks, she accidentally let Naruto's brother get stuck in her buttocks. Naruto let out a soft cry, and his body shook violently. He almost subconsciously raised his gun and swelled violently. Shizuka also felt very strange, only felt that the body was warm, and a wet and sticky feeling flowed out. "No, not good," I actually reacted. "Well, it got wet. Well, what a shame." While she was driving, she was extremely embarrassed. With Naruto's guy sandwiched between her hips, she felt a slight throbbing, strong and powerful, which made her feel unable to control herself. Fortunately, because of the sudden danger just now, everyone in the car focused on the safety of the two of them. At this time, seeing that they had successfully escaped the danger, they could not help but let out a sigh of relief, but did not notice Naruto and Naruto. The difference between Shizuka. In this way, in this tormenting and fragrant driving, the group drove out of the alley and came to the road leading to the urban area of Bed Main City. In the car, because the windshield was damaged, the strong wind poured into the car. All the girls' hair was blown high, and Shizuka's long pale yellow hair brushed against Naruto's face, itchy, which made him feel even more intolerable. "Naruto, where should I go now?" Shizuka asked while driving the car. "Go to the police headquarters first," he cried. Mommy is a police officer who belongs to the traffic department of the police system of Beju City. Usually, she stays in the office of the traffic department at this time. When the crisis breaks out, if there are enough manpower in the police station to fight against her, she should not encounter any problems. To great danger. At this time, he must rush to her side first, and maybe be able to find her. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to find someone in such a big city. Time passed slowly, night fell, and the wind blowing in front was also cold. Shizuka's body trembled slightly, and she couldn't help leaning into Naruto's arms behind her. "I'm hungry." At this moment, Guixin in Yan Yi's arms suddenly said weakly. The girls behind the car seat also sighed slightly. After a long day of fleeing, they didn't even eat dinner, and even Naruto's stomach groaned under the condition of a lot of physical exhaustion. This state, "Let's find a supermarket to find something to eat first," Naruto said. All the girls nodded in unison. The headlights of the car were on. At night, the buildings on both sides of the road were sparsely illuminated, and the street lights were also on intermittently. It has only been half a day since the crisis broke out. It seems that the power supply system here was not destroyed. The store can be maintained for a period of time. Ahead, there happened to be a supermarket, and the girls couldn't help but get excited. They found that this was the first time in their history that they would be so excited when they saw a supermarket. In a world that is about to collapse, having a portion of food is already a very luxurious thing. The car finally stopped at a place about tens of meters away from the supermarket, in an unoccupied area. There were not many dead bodies nearby. Naruto planned to get off the car here. Some people stayed in the car to patrol, himself and the other three. Go to the supermarket to get food. With Yanyi, Shiji, Saya, and Naruto leading the way, they quietly approached the supermarket. Chapter 466 Get Food. The crowd in the supermarket was also very dense, and Naruto knew that he had to be careful when entering, otherwise, he might be suddenly attacked by a dead body if he was careless. Be careful when you follow me. Don't leave me 5 meters away, Naruto ordered. The world, Yanyi and Saya all nodded in response. The lights are still on inside the supermarket, and from the outside, you can see that there are many products on the shelves. However, when Naruto looked carefully, he found that there were more than a dozen dead bodies standing between the shelves, all of them hanging by their necks. Move slowly over there. Ah, that's a lot, Yanyi whispered, and was so scared that he gently grabbed Naruto's arm. Be careful, I'll go ahead and attract them to the corner, you three get the food, Naruto said, and strode into the supermarket. When Naruto walked to the shelf, because his footsteps were too light, these dead bodies had not reacted even though they were more than 10 meters away from Naruto, and Naruto couldn't help but be stunned. Aren't they observed by sight? A thought flashed through his mind. The next moment, he suddenly coughed, and the sound spread in the supermarket. In an instant, all the dead bodies in the supermarket moved towards Naruto, as if they were evil dogs that had found food. Sure enough, it seems that their vision is not good, they rely on hearing. After Naruto learned this important news, he couldn't help laughing. Then, he jumped slightly, and suddenly jumped to a shelf against the wall, clapped his hands lightly, and applause came out, attracting all the dead bodies in the supermarket to him. You can come in now, remember, as long as you don't make any noise, you'll be fine. Exit immediately after moving the food, I'll hold them off first. Naruto shouted softly towards Yanyi and the others at the door. Are these guys invisible? Shay pondered for a while and whispered. I don't know, let's just listen to Naruto, he should have found something. Yanyi nodded slightly and replied in a low voice. Yeah, since Naruto said so, we'll follow it. Now the most important thing is to find enough food quickly. The world also agreed. When Shay heard the words, she had no choice but to nod. Although she was a little dissatisfied, why did these girls always obey him, but now she has to temporarily obey his commands. The three girls quietly walked into the supermarket, and sure enough, none of the dead bodies noticed any movement here, and they all surrounded Naruto standing on the shelf. Looking at Rin's dazzling array of products, the three girls had a strange feeling in their hearts. At this time, there were no other living people in the whole supermarket, not even the silver clerk, which means that the things they took here were impossible to find. You pay at the place, so you can just take it away. This is illegal. But in today's world, where everyone is in danger, who is going to manage these things? I'm afraid the police can't protect themselves, right? Slightly excited, the three women each carried a large basket and began to carefully and quickly remove the food on the shelf, most of which were vacuum-packed food, some canned food, and some mineral Izumi water. It's such a strange feeling. Now you can take whatever you like. World stuck out his tongue and whispered. Yes, we shouldn't have to pay later, right? Yanyi nodded slightly. Listening to the conversation between the two, Saya on the side urged softly, let's pack things quickly, stop talking, it will be bad to attract them from Naruto. The two women stuck out their tongues and quickly closed their mouths. After a while, the food in the three girls' baskets was almost full, and Saya was going to get some underwear for girls. As soon as I came to the shelf over there and took down some intimate clothes, I suddenly found a middle-aged woman-like body lying on the ground in the corner, staring at her with wide eyes. Half of her head was full. It had been bitten off, and the white blood in the brain flowed to the shoulders and solidified. Seeing such a terrifying and tragic scene, Shay couldn't help but cry. Immediately, her voice penetrated the air and reached the group of dead bodies surrounding Naruto's feet. All the dead bodies shook in unison. Then, they suddenly turned around and rushed towards the sound zone. Not good. Saya was startled immediately, and hurried to the door of the supermarket. What's wrong? Yanyi and the world were also slightly startled, seeing that Saya was in a situation, followed by a lot of dead bodies, and they were also quite frightened. Naruto sighed helplessly, jumped down, quickly rushed behind the group of dead bodies chasing Saya, took out his dagger, and slashed towards their waists. Kai! A ray of light flashed, and several dead bodies were instantly divided into two halves, blood and intestines flowing all over the ground. Shay turned his head and saw that Naruto came to help, and his expression couldn't help but be slightly happy. Naruto, save me. But seeing the scene of blood and flesh flying, his pupils widened in fright. Don't worry, I'll be fine soon. Naruto smiled slightly, his body suddenly accelerated, and he jumped forward, over the heads of many dead bodies, and appeared behind Saya, followed by his body. Suddenly, he turned towards the dead body that rushed up, and the dagger in his hand crossed a huge arc. Swish! Next moment, the cold light of the dagger cut all the dead bodies within 180 degrees in front of them in half at an incredible angle. In an instant, nearly 5 or 6 dead bodies fell under Naruto's dagger. It's a one-sided slaughter. Naruto stood still, watching Saya and the 3 women in the world of Yanyi run out of the supermarket with food, with a slight relief on his face. At this time, all the dead bodies in the supermarket rioted and began to rush towards Naruto frantically. Naruto's body was like a butterfly wearing flowers, shuttled back and forth among the dead bodies, constantly gathering the dead bodies beside him. Finally, when most of the dead bodies were all gathered together, Naruto's figure finally came to the door of the supermarket. He glanced at the dead bodies that kept rushing towards him, smiled lightly, stretched out his hand and took out a temporary detonation talisman made a few days ago from his trousers pocket, and then slowly threw it towards the center of the many dead bodies. Boom! A loud bang. Chapter 467 Stop. Intense flames instantly filled the door of the entire supermarket, and the explosive flames blew all the dead bodies in front of Naruto with a strong shock wave. Naruto moved, and returned to the off-road vehicle at the entrance of the supermarket, which had been far away from the moment the explosion started. At this time, Yanyi, Shiji and Saya also just arrived in the car, stuffed the 3 big baskets into the car, and got into it. In the car, the girls looked at the strong explosion in the supermarket behind with a puzzled look. What happened there? Yako asked Naruto, who had just gotten into the car. Naruto smiled lightly. It's nothing, I just settled some things before leaving. Wow, there's so much to eat, sister. Guishin saw the food in those baskets at a glance, and cried out excitedly. After Naruto got into the car, Shizuka took the initiative to stand up, her face turned slightly Yuhi, and she whispered, "Hurry up and sit down, Naruto, the explosion over there attracted a lot of dead bodies around here." Naruto hurriedly sat down, and then Shizuka was still a fart, sitting on his lap, started the car and drove away along the road. Let's find a quiet place to eat now, otherwise everyone will be exhausted, Yazi suggested. Naruto nodded. It's still a bit far from the center of the city. The police headquarters seems to be on the other side. After getting rid of the dead body behind, we can just find a place nearby to rest and rectify. He glanced at Shizuka, who was driving seriously on his body, and said softly, "Mr. Shizuka must be very tired after driving for so long." After more than 10 minutes, the car finally drove to the edge of a flat river beach. Under the night, there were not many dead bodies here, and the car stopped beside the river on the bank. Many dead bodies far away did not notice the movement here. Shizuka exhaled slightly. Let's stop here first, the nearest dead body is hundreds of meters away from here. Yes, if it is calculated according to this distance, they won't come even if we eat here, as long as we don't make a particularly loud noise. Shay said seriously. Okay, let's take a rest in the car, let's have something to eat, and then I'll get out of the car and have a look. You can rest at ease. You can take a nap for a while, but I'll wake you up in 2 hours. Naruto whispered said. The girls nodded. Naruto opened the door and jumped down. Wait, Naruto. Just as Naruto was about to get out of the car, Yanyi grabbed him, suddenly handed over a bottle of Izumi water and a pack of compressed biscuits, and smiled softly at him. These are for you, get out of the car and eat something. Naruto smiled slightly, took the food Yanyi brought him, closed the door and got out of the car. The girls in the car were starving, and began to choose some of their favorite foods from the food that Yanyi and the others brought back from the supermarket. Well, there is actually dried fish that I like to eat. Otome said in surprise. Hee, there is also my favorite barbecue. Gui Shin laughed. The girls in the car were eating food and chatting with each other in a low voice. Under the darkness of night, the whole world seemed to be the only ones of them still alive, the surroundings were silent, and only some insects were still adding some vitality to the world. Naruto came to the beach, opened the compressed biscuits, and thought about the future road while eating. In this world where most of the human beings are infected and become dead bodies, it is difficult for everyone's life to be guaranteed. Naruto's original desire to cultivate in a safe and stable manner seems to have become an extravagant hope. At times like this, all those who survived are fleeing for their lives, and all those who can still breathe are troubled by the next survival. At this time, all the dreams of the original world have become things of the past. Next, everyone has the same desire, to live. Although Naruto doesn't have to worry that he can't survive in this city full of dead bodies, he still cares about the situation on Mami's side. She is his own woman. The words of a dead body that is neither human nor ghost. He didn't know what he would do. At this time, how much he longed for the chakra in his body to be completely released, how much he longed to return to the era of ninjas that were so fleeting. Hateful. Strength. I need strength. Naruto's heart is calling strongly. However, the stagnant chakra in the body did not listen to his orders at all, only the poor chakra that was still slowly recovering from just now. With so little chakra, what can you do? Hiraishin can barely be activated, and only a small wind blade can be released. There is so little that can be done, and even a complete Rasengan cannot be used. He sighed slightly. Slowly closed his eyes. Life force. Unable to sense. Force of nature. Also silent. This world, originally so peaceful and peaceful, has now become such a hellish existence. Here, what is the world? Naruto's heart was full of countless questions, but he couldn't get the answers to these questions. At this moment, on the bus where Koichi Wisteria was, all the students were listening to their teacher, the godfather, speaking of Wisteria. Students, don't worry, don't be confused, at least we are still alive, aren't we? On this bus, at least we are all safe. So, we don't need to be afraid. Too much fear and worry will only make people collapse. Why don't we change our mentality and look away, do you think so? He chuckled and sat down with a beautiful female classmate. On the side, he put his arms around the other's shoulders and said with a smile, "Student, your body is shaking, don't be afraid, as long as you lean into my arms for a while, you won't be afraid anymore." The gentle voice was a bit disgusting, but the female classmate had already been frightened by the current situation outside. At this time, Teacher Wisteria's gentle voice and consolation made her seem to have support in her heart. She slowly leaned against Wisteria's body, and when she closed her eyes, it seemed that she really felt a sense of peace of mind. Wisteria's eyes flashed a hint of obscenity, smiled, and quietly reached out and grabbed a jade milk of the girl in her arms, and gently played with it. Let go of your body and mind. In fact, this world is not desperate yet, because I am here, I will make everyone happy. Quote. Chapter 468 Lost People. Seeing this, Miyamoto Rei, who was in the car, couldn't help but be furious. She couldn't help but yelled angrily, "Scum! Beast! Who is this kind of person who does this kind of thing to a girl at this time?" Lee. Komuro Takaya quietly pulled her back and signaled that she couldn't be so excited anymore. He could see that at this time, the dominance of the car had been completely occupied by Shido Koichi, and the classmates in the car were behind him. Under his incitement, he has completely become his captive, and he has already obeyed his words. If you provoke him at this time, it is likely that he will suffer a ruthless blow. Don't pull me, I really can't bear to see such a sanctimonious beast. Lee ran over to grab Wisteria's body, but the girl who was leaning in his arms and being soothed suddenly opened her eyes at her. He scolded, "Please don't disturb me and Mr. Wisteria. In this desperate world, isn't there even room for us to indulge a little?" Miyamoto Rei was stunned for a moment and became speechless. How can you do this? As a girl, you are willing to fall with this kind of scum. Miyamoto Rei said angrily. Teacher Wisteria can give me a sense of security, so I'm willing to be with him. I also believe that he can lead everyone out of the current predicament. But the girl didn't listen to Lee's anger at all, and instead stretched out her arms to wrap her arms around her. Wisteria's neck took the initiative to offer a warm kiss. Miyamoto Rei looked speechless for a while. At this time, many classmates in the car were also of different shades of color. Some girls were very envious on their faces, while some boys felt helpless and disdainful, but most people still trusted Wisteria and regarded him as a savior. Miyamoto Rei had no choice but to watch everyone being brainwashed by the scumbag Wisteria and distorting their thoughts. With a helpless sigh, Miyamoto Rei suddenly felt the urge to get off the bus halfway. She really didn't want to stay in this kind of place for a moment. Xiaomuro also sighed helplessly. At this time, the car was heading for the suburbs, but because everyone lacked food, Wisteria ordered to go to a nearby town to replenish some food. At this time, Rei and Komuro Taka, who had become very hungry, could only temporarily follow everyone to find something to eat. It was almost late at night, and some lights were dimly lit in the town. When the bus entered the town along the intermittent street lights on the street, it was silent along the way, and there was not a single person. Kiba facing the passing bus. Go and get off at the front, then go to the supermarket to get food. Shito Hiroshi ordered. The student who drove the car parked the car according to the words in an open space in front. There were not many dead bodies here, and everyone could have enough time to find food and come back. The door opened, but everyone was afraid to get out. Because although the dead body under the car is still far away from the car, everyone understands that once they are accidentally discovered, it will definitely be dead and no life. What's the matter? Don't you all go looking for food? That's not good. You'll starve to death. Shito Hiroshi stood up, pushed his glasses and gave everyone a slight smile. That's good, for the sake of fairness. Let's all draw lots to decide who gets off the bus. When everyone heard it, they all nodded in agreement. After a while, everyone, including Rei and Komuro Takahashi, had already entered the lottery. Because it doesn't take too many people to retrieve the food, Wisteria decided to choose 10 people to fetch it. There were more than 30 students in the car, and the probability of each one being drawn was almost 1/3. At the beginning of the lottery, everyone prayed in their hearts that they would not be drawn, even if they were the companions sitting next to them. Don't be your own. Everyone looked very nervous. When the results of the lottery were announced, 10 people were selected, and they got out of the car in fear and dejection, including Takao Komuro, but compared to other classmates, he seemed much calmer, but when Shito Hiroshi looked at his it was a sneer at the time. Miyamoto Rei originally insisted on getting out of the car with Komuro Takahashi to look for food, but Komuro Takahashi was afraid that she would not want to get in the car once she got off the car, so she forced her to stay in the car. The strength of the two is difficult to survive. Therefore, the only way for them to follow the large group is to be safe on the bus. The best way is to wait until they get off the bus in a remote place to prepare. Komuro Takashi and his party left the bus to look for food. In the bus, Hiroichi Shito was sitting beside the former female classmate, stroking his hands recklessly, stroking the female classmate's chest. Since the female classmate was not selected by lottery, she is very happy now and keeps twisting herself. Her delicate body, she stretched out her chest for Wisteria to enjoy, and she herself enjoyed the joyous feeling of being caressed and comforted. Miyamoto Rei looked disgusted for a while, and quickly turned her head away and stopped paying attention. When Shido Hiroshi was playing with the female student's body, his eyes fell on Miyamoto Rei's back, seeing that she was far larger than the female student next to her, and his eyes flashed like a wolf. After a long time, the 10 classmates who were sent out had not returned, and the classmates in the car felt that something was wrong and began to fidgeting. At this moment, a scream suddenly came from not far away, and everyone in the car couldn't help shaking. This voice is. It's little Izumi classmate. A classmate in the car shouted tremblingly. Have they been attacked? A classmate hurriedly looked out the window, but was immediately taken aback. I saw a few classmates who took out the food were running towards the bus desperately. Behind them, a group of terrifying dead bodies were chased out of the supermarket. The scream just now was that a slow classmate was caught. The terrified sound of holding his arm and being torn apart violently. Seeing this, Wisteria couldn't help but change his face, and cursed inwardly, a bunch of idiots. It has attracted so many dead bodies. I can't ask for food. Drive. No, Miyamoto Rei was shocked and exclaimed, Xiaomuro is still outside. Damn bastard. At this time, a classmate who was running at the front shouted at the bus with the food in his hand, Mr. Wisteria, I found the food, let me get on the bus. Chapter 469 Abandon. Don't let him get in. A classmate in the car yelled in panic. Yeah, he'll attract those terrifying guys. Shido Hiroshi flashed an inexplicable light in his eyes, looked at the classmate who was chasing after the bus from the car window, and shook his head slightly. I'm really sorry, classmate, now I have to put everyone's interests first. The value of it is irrelevant, so please sacrifice it for everyone. Quote. No, don't leave me. He ran and grabbed the edge of the window, trying to get on the bus. The dead body behind him kept chasing him, and all the food he brought back fell to the ground. Fear filled his whole heart, but the classmates sat in the car with a silent wait-and-see attitude. Maybe a few classmates would feel pity for him. It's a pity, but so what? On the other hand, Koichi Shido shook his head slightly and reached out to grab the arm of the classmate who was grabbing the edge of the window. The classmate looked slightly overjoyed. Thanks, Mr. Wisteria. However, before he could finish his happy words, Shido Koichi broke his arm hanging from the car window, leaned over and whispered to him, Classmate, I didn't even get the food back, so I just wanted to go there. A car, I'll never accept anything worthless here. He looked in horror at the cruel smile on the face of dear Wisteria-sensei, and then his body fell backwards. A group of dead bodies rushed up, and countless hands and mouths landed on his body. What? The earth-shattering screams resounded in the night sky, and everyone in the car could not help shaking, and their faces were full of fear. Shido Hiroichi smiled excitedly. At this time, Miyamoto Rei in the car was shocked when she saw this scene. Under such circumstances, how could she expect the bus to open the door and let the small room come in? Looking at the small room and the others who were among a group of dead bodies not far away, Rei's eyes were full of anxiety and tears. Xiaoxi, she cried out sadly, but she could only stand in the car window in vain, looking at Xiaoxi and the others who were getting farther and farther away from her. Koichi Shido, Miyamoto Rei shouted angrily, holding the iron rod in her hand, and charged towards him angrily. A trace of fear flashed on Shido Hiroshi's face, but he immediately calmed down and said indifferently, Student Lee, the choice I made in this situation is for everyone's consideration. If I accidentally let those dead bodies enter the car, I'm afraid everyone can't live, right? Are you saying that you want everyone to die with Kamuro Taka and the others? Miyamoto Rei didn't listen to him at all, and stabbed the iron rod forward fiercely. At this moment, the previous female classmate who was toyed with by Wisteria suddenly ran out, and shot the palace from behind. Then Lee hugged her tightly. You are not allowed to hurt Mr. Wisteria. The decisions he made are for the sake of all of us. You heretic, get out of the way. Miyamoto Rei was pulled away by the female classmate. At the same time, there were several others around. The students rushed up to restrain her. Miyamoto Rei couldn't struggle, her face was full of anger, and the students around her were also extremely indignant. Damn, are you idiots? He's just taking advantage of you. He doesn't see you as human at all. Miyamoto rebuked loudly, but he couldn't struggle at all. Shido Hiroshi had a slight smile on his face, and an evil arc flashed at the corner of his mouth. Student Lee, you are really impulsive. People like you. I think staying in our car is also an unstable element. It seems that it is necessary to let you off. Get off the bus. Quickly open the door for me. Miyamoto Rei was eager to get off the bus now, but at this time the bus was not out of danger, and Shido Koichi didn't dare let anyone open the door. Not now, but I respect your decision very much. However, for the sake of your life, it's better to let you off when you're in a safe place. Shido Hiroshi said with a smile. The night shrouded the four fields, the sky was bright and the moon hung high, and the cool moonlight sprinkled on this piece of land. Naruto looked up and murmured, "It's almost time, it's time to go." He returned to the car, opened the car door, and found that all the girls were already asleep on their seats. Shizuka in the driver's seat was lying on the steering wheel, and the two pairs of huge meat mountains on his chest were pressed against it, and an exaggerated line was squeezed out. Waves. In the passenger seat, Yanyi and Gui Shin also hugged and leaned against the chair, and the two women slept peacefully. In the back seat, the world, Yanyi, Otome, Saya, and Yuko also fell asleep. The five women were lying or leaning together, and their bodies were all laid out. Every girl had a place to go, but Naruto now, but there was no such thought at all. They were also very tired. With such a sudden disaster, even the ones who returned from the Hokage world were a little uncomfortable, let alone those who lived in peaceful times all the year round. Seeing them sleeping peacefully, Naruto suddenly had the idea of not wanting to disturb them. However, to save mommy, I have to hurry up now. It has been more than 2 hours since I rested. Naruto is already very uneasy and anxious. What is the situation on Mammy's side? He lightly patted Shizuka on the shoulder and pushed her, but the sleeping school Dr. Shizuka didn't seem to feel it at all. Instead, he moved along Naruto's arm and leaned into his arms. With an unconscious hum, Shizuka's head was buried in Naruto's arms, and a pretty jade face was pressed against his chest. Naruto sighed helplessly, reached out and patted her tender face gently. Wake up, Shizuka. Shizuka, who was sleeping soundly, still didn't open her eyes, but unconsciously reached out and patted Naruto's palm. Don't move. At this time, due to the movement on Naruto's side, Yako woke up first. She opened her beautiful eyes slightly to look at Naruto and asked, "How long have we been sleeping?" Seeing her wake up, Naruto said with a wry smile, "It's been more than 2 hours, it's time to leave." It looks like I overslept, I'm really sorry. Mr. Shizuka hasn't woken up yet. Seeing Shizuka sleeping in Naruto's arms, Yako was also quite helpless. I didn't expect her so lethargic. Yeah, everyone is tired. Naruto put his hand on Shizuka's forehead, and a tiny strand of chakra passed into her head. With slight stimulation, she finally opened her eyes in a daze. Chapter 470 set off. Naruto. The school Dr. Shizuka opened her beautiful eyes and saw Naruto's blue pupils at first glance. After a little stunned, she realized that she was holding someone tightly with her hands. His waist, his head was shyly attached to his chest. Yeah, I'm sorry Naruto, didn't I do some irregular things while sleeping? After she woke up, she suddenly let out a light cry, and hurriedly got up from him, her face slightly a flash of Yuhi halo flashed. It's nothing, I'm sorry I had to wake you up. Naruto straightened her body, let her sit on his lap again, closed the door and smiled slightly. Thank you for your hard work, drive. We must hurry up. Off. Oh, okay, Naruto. Shizuka hurriedly sat up straight, opened the car key and started the car. The car vibrated slightly, and began to move forward along the river. Under the moonlight, some of the girls in the car were still asleep. Naruto leaned on the chair, put his hands on Shizuka's slender waist, and said softly, "Fight before dawn. Find the target." At this time, the big bus where Koichi Wisteria was also slowly left the town and returned to the road leading to the main city. At the intersection, the bus stopped. "Go on, classmate Lee." Shido Hiroshi waved his hand and looked at Lee with a playful expression. This is on a highway in the urban and suburban areas. Although there are very few dead bodies nearby, even if you get off the bus, there will not be too much danger. However, let a girl get off the bus here without any means of transportation, and Lee, who had been hungry for almost a day, had to find something to eat by herself after getting off the bus. It was so difficult. Ray bit Kiba slightly, staring at Koichi Wisteria angrily. She knew that this guy deliberately put himself in such a place to make things difficult for himself. Seeing the angry look on Lee's face, Zito Haoi smiled extremely happily, looking at her with a wicked smile at the corner of his mouth. "How is it? Do you want to get off? If you don't want to get off, please beg me, I can consider taking you stay, but you must obey my orders, otherwise, you will have a lot of harm to everyone if you keep this unstable factor." "Bah, don't even think about it." Miyamoto Ray suddenly spit at him fiercely, jumped under the car with an iron pole in hand, and got out of the car. Zito Hao's expression changed slightly. He quickly reached out and wiped the saliva from his face. His eyes narrowed cruelly. "Stinky bitch, son. Leave me and see how you survive." The bus quickly left Miyamoto Ray, and Ray stood alone on the dark road, walking towards the faint light of the street lights in front of her. It was dark and cold around her, and she felt that a dead body might pop out at any time and ripped her to pieces. Fear gradually took over her heart, and at this moment, she found that the world was as desolate and lonely as if she was alone. Kamuro Taka and those classmates were already surrounded by dead bodies. She knew that the probability of being able to survive in that situation was simply too low to imagine. She was so sad in her heart that she finally couldn't bear the powerlessness and despair in her heart, so she sat down on the side of the road and stared blankly at the dim light in front of her. Suddenly, she saw a motorcycle parked on the side of the road, and she couldn't help being shocked. Motorcycle. Although I can't drive a car, if I have a motorcycle, I may not die here, and there is still hope. The desire to survive in her heart gradually came up. Miyamoto Ray hurriedly stood up, ran to the car, and checked it carefully. She was pleasantly surprised to find that the motorcycle still had a key inserted, so she tried to ride it. With a bang, the motorcycle started immediately. Great, the car is not broken. Still able to use. Lee rode her motorcycle and drove frantically along the road, as if to vent the unspeakable fear in her heart. Naruto and his party drove the off-road vehicle through the city. Shizuka, who had rested for a while, was a little sleepy now, but it did not affect the driving. It's just that the constant flow of dead bodies on the street makes people feel a little scary. In this city, there are almost no living people. Naruto's brows furrowed slightly, and his heart became more and more worried. At this time, just a few kilometers in front of Naruto, a group of policemen were frantically shooting at the dead bodies in front of them. Bang bang bang. Gunshots erupted, and the dead bodies in front fell one by one. At this time, the police had nothing to worry about. In order to survive, even if the dead body was originally the mayor, it must be killed. The police chief Nakaoka Nagata, who was Mami's father, was covered in layers of cold sweat. Because even though his subordinates were shooting frantically, there were too many dead bodies in front of them, and they were also approaching layer by layer, killing a group of people, and another group coming up behind them, which was simply endless. Mami stood beside her father and was protected by her father. She could only watch everyone continue to shoot and fight, and as a civilian police officer in the traffic department who had just started working, she had never fired a gun and could not participate at all. Fighting. At this time, seeing that the people on her side were retreating step by step, and there were more and more dead bodies in front of her, she knew that everyone was suffering. The world has become too fast, too suddenly. Just a moment ago, she was still in the office fantasizing about the happy scene of living with Naruto in the future, but now she is facing this apocalyptic disaster. Almost all the people on the street turned into cannibals. She witnessed with her own eyes that a colleague who rushed out at the beginning of the disaster was bitten by a dead body and turned into these walking corpses. In more than an hour, pedestrians on the street were bitten to death one by one, and then turned into zombies one by one. She also deeply felt that there were fewer and fewer living people around her. The danger was getting closer, and the fear in her heart was getting deeper and deeper. Fortunately, at this time, her father came forward. Although she was usually stern and did not agree with her father who had been with Naruto, she felt very annoying, but at this moment, she felt that her father's back was like a mountain standing in front of her. Block all dangers in front of you. It's just that now this mountain is in retreat, and the police force organized by my father is also collapsing little by little. At this time, she is really desperate. Chapter 471 Into Despair. At this moment, she couldn't help thinking of Naruto. She wondered what happened to Naruto at Fujimi Academy, and if the same situation happened on his side. If so, she really didn't dare to think about it anymore. Nakauka Nagata stepped back and saw his daughter beside him stunned. He couldn't help shouting, "Mommy, what are you still doing? Get back to the car. It's dangerous here." Soon as Mommy heard this, she raised her head stubbornly. "No, Father, I'm also a policeman, and I want to fight with everyone." "You bastard. With a policeman of your level, what kind of battle is a person who failed in the police academy talking about? Come back to the car for me. Be obedient," Nagata yelled at her. I really want to fight." "Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and get me in the car." Nagata took her daughter's arm, retreated to the police car, came to open the door and shoved her hard. "Everyone, shoot. Don't let them come over." Nagata raised the gun in his hand, shot through the forehead of a dead body, and ordered everyone. "Sir Nagata, no, our ammunition is about to run out. If we continue like this, we will be wiped out." A policeman fired a clip and quickly replaced it with another. Shouted, "Damn, how did these guys come out? Is the world really coming to an end?" Nagata slapped the roof of the car with his palm. "Get out." At this time, at the rear of the police force, the people who were still alive were backing away frantically. When they saw that even the police couldn't stop the zombies, everyone was desperate. At a time like this, it really is the end of the world. The calm of the previous moment is still in my mind, and at this moment, I am facing a life and death escape. This huge sense of gap, and the huge fear that accompanies it, completely occupies the human heart. Nagata glanced at the group of citizens who were running away in the back, bit Kiba, and suddenly waved and shouted, "Everyone hold on for a while, let the citizens evacuate here first. As police officers, we must not be afraid to escape." "Father." Mommy got out of the car, holding a silver-colored pistol in her hand, and the jade hand holding the gun was trembling slightly. "I will help you too." She stood beside her father and shot frantically at the dead body in front of her. "Mommy, you child." Nagata sighed slightly, seeing her daughter's firm expression, and she couldn't help feeling extremely desolate. My daughter is so strong in her heart. Thinking about it now, as a father, I really seldom understand her feelings. But at the same time, he was also relieved that his daughter was not afraid to run away after all. As a police officer, she was already qualified. However, the next situation is very bad. Everyone has only a little ammunition left in their hands, and there is still the last round of magazines in their pockets. After these bullets are fired, how can everyone resist these dead bodies? Woolen cloth. With only dozens of police officers, how can they fight the hundreds or even thousands of dead bodies in front of them? Hey! With a long sigh, Nagata replaced the last round of the magazine. At this time, Naruto's car was moving forward at a high speed. He didn't know the dangerous situation on Mami's side, but he always had a bad premonition in his heart, as if he knew that Mami was caught in a huge crisis. "Hurry up, Mr. Shizuka," Naruto said. "Well, good. Zhu Chuan Jingxiang slammed on the accelerator, and the off-road vehicle accelerated again and ran ahead. The strong wind poured in from the shattered front window, and the girl's hair was all messy. Under the night, there were still some lights in the city, but fortunately, the street lights were not completely broken. With these lights, the car had reached the fastest speed. The dead bodies around couldn't catch the shadow of the off-road vehicle at all, as if a gust of wind had passed, and the car had already crossed a long distance. The girls who were sleeping in the car also woke up at this time, and they were startled when they saw that the speed of the car was actually driving so fast. However, although they were nervous and scared, they did not speak, because they knew that Naruto must be very anxious at this time. In front, there was finally a trace of fire, and Naruto faintly heard the call of people, and his eyes could not help but widen. The ammunition had been used up, and dozens of policemen gathered together, some with batons in their hands, some with iron railings, and some with barricades. They all stared nervously at the army of dead bodies in front of them. Mammy's pistol bullets have long been exhausted, and at this time she has no weapons other than this useless pistol. A weak girl like her is basically unable to resist these terrifying dead bodies. Nagata protected her behind him with a firm look, with the baton in his hand in front of him. Don't be afraid, everyone. It's all about death anyway, let's see who kills the most before death. After listening to the officer's words, everyone's eyes showed a decisive look. At this time, death has become inevitable. If you can kill a few more dead bodies, it is also a kind of boasting capital to go to another world after death. With this thought in mind, the young police officers all rushed towards the army of dead bodies as if at home. Nagata looked back at his daughter, with a loving smile on his face. Mommy, I'm sorry, I've been against you and Naruto before, but now we're going to die, and you still have regrets in your heart. Really not a qualified father. No, father, you are a good policeman and a good father. Even if mommy dies, she will be with her father. Mommy raised the gun in her hand, she looked firm and determined, and followed her father together with everyone. They rushed towards the army of dead bodies. Naruto, I'm sorry, I won't be able to see you from 1010 in the future, and I won't be able to have sex with you anymore. Love, I believe that after death, I will definitely become ugly, if you are still alive and see it. At this last moment, Naruto's bright smile appeared in Mammy's mind, as well as the lingering, passionate, and loving scenes when the two were together, and her eyes filled with tears of reluctance. Goodbye, Naruto, goodbye, my love. Mommy snorted and used all her strength to fly towards the dead bodies. Chapter 472 Flash in an instant. At this moment, no one has fear in their hearts, some are just a heroic mood, and the nostalgia for relatives, friends and loved ones. At this moment, everyone is going to die together, and they have already communicated with each other. Death is just a moment. Perhaps in this apocalyptic world, death is the best destination for human beings. At this moment, no one knew or noticed that a handful of kunai flashing with cold light suddenly crossed the space of hundreds of meters, tearing layers of air and bursting in front of everyone. Base. The tip of the dagger slammed into the ground in front of the dead body, and the policemen who were rushing in front were all stunned. At the next moment, a faint golden light suddenly flashed into the night, and in everyone's sight, a blonde boy appeared out of thin air. He is Naruto. Just now, the off-road vehicle finally rushed to the back of Mommy and others. After Naruto found the living person, he searched for a while, and Kazuki saw Mammy's figure. He couldn't help but be ecstatic. At that time, his heart also tightened. Because he saw that Mommy was among them, and was rushing out desperately. This silly girl. Naruto sighed, stretched out his hand and threw the dagger he carried with him that had killed countless dead bodies. Then, under the puzzled eyes of Shizuka and everyone in the car, he disappeared without a sound. It is the art of Hiraishin. Using Kuwusheng's spacetime technique, he can use the only trace of chakra in his body to move instantly. All the police couldn't help but stop, staring at the back that appeared out of thin air with incomparably amazed eyes. The short golden hair seems to be exuding golden light in the night, but under the white short shirt, the back looks so wide. Naruto squatted on the ground slightly, with one hand on the ground. He slowly raised his head, reached out and pulled out the dagger stuck on the ground, then stood up slowly, and looked at the dead body surging in front of him. Finally, catch up. Although the chakra that can be used in the body is almost exhausted at this time, he is not afraid at all. An aura of a strong man burst out from Naruto. Those dead bodies were still rushing towards Naruto frantically, as if they hadn't found him. Naruto. At this moment, Mommy, who was in the crowd behind her, suddenly covered her mouth and exclaimed, and looked at his back in astonishment. That's right. She was right. The figure in front of him is the lover he has been thinking about, Naruto. Why is he here? Why did he appear out of nowhere? Is it an illusion created by yourself? At this moment, Mammy's heart was full of disbelief. Just like Mommy, the police officers who were rushing in front of Naruto all thought there was something wrong with their eyes. Why did this guy suddenly appear in front of him? How did he appear? Is this an illusion? What is going on in all this? Everyone was stunned, their minds seemed to be blank, and they didn't know how to think. As for Mammy's father, Nakauka Nagata also stared at Naruto's back in disbelief. Hearing his daughter's exclamation, he felt even more unbelievable. Is he Uzumaki Naruto? Uzumaki Naruto who keeps his daughter thinking day and night. At this moment, he suddenly felt a trance. At this time, Naruto felt that the group of police officers behind him were frightened by the way he appeared. He shook his head helplessly, turned back and smiled slightly, and said, "Everyone, back up. I'll leave it to you here. I'm fine." What did he say? Everyone was almost stunned, they even thought there was something wrong with their ears, and he actually called everyone back. Then what does he want to do? Is it Kai? A cold light flashed, and the dagger in Naruto's hand had drawn an arc forward fiercely. In an instant, within 1 meter of Naruto's front, the group of dead bodies that were crowded together began to separate from the waist. Chi-chi. Blood suddenly sprayed out from the waists of several dead bodies, and Naruto's figure suddenly turned into a shadow and rushed into the dead body group. Boom. Konoha whirlwind. Naruto's figure suddenly jumped high, turned suddenly, and one leg drew a circular whirlwind arc in midair. Bang bang bang. Countless dead bodies who came up were hit in the head one after another. Then, their heads were kicked to pieces like watermelons. Another dozen dead bodies fell to the ground. Naruto fell to the ground, and the figure seemed to be like a whirlwind wandering through the dead body. Wherever the dagger went, a cold light suddenly appeared, and the dead body fell to the ground. In the blink of an eye, dozens of dead bodies fell to the ground. Crowd. Sensational. When the police saw this scene, Chi-Chi opened their mouths wide with a look of disbelief on their faces. Superman. Ultraman. Everyone had this idea in their hearts, because in their eyes, seeing Naruto shuttle back and forth in the dead body, it was like watching a kung fu movie, the scene where the hand rises and the knife falls, and the head falls, completely a one-sided slaughter. And those sluggish dead bodies couldn't touch Naruto's body at all. Even if a dead body grabbed Naruto's arm, he would be thrown away directly by him. Fly away. That's a real fling. Pick up the dead body directly from the ground, and then throw it more than 10 meters away from the surrounding area and the sky. How strong does this need to be? Moreover, Naruto looks very relaxed. This is definitely not the level that ordinary people can do. At this moment, all the police stood there, watching Naruto fight as if he were a Superman, and their brains had fallen into a blank. At this time, only Mommy was able to regain her senses. Seeing that her beloved not only was not engulfed by these disasters, but instead came to save herself as a Superman, an unparalleled sense of happiness rose in her heart. A heart also seems to jump out of the throat, and even can't help but rejoice for Naruto. Naruto, you are not dead. You are all right. And not only that, you have come to save yourself. You are like a hero who fell from the sky, pulling yourself out of despair. Great. It's so exciting. Mami's whole body trembled with excitement. She never thought there would be such a moment. Looking at her man, the hero in her heart, Mami burst into tears. Chapter 473 Common Battle. Naruto was shaped like a wind, and the dagger in his hand turned into a stream of light. Wherever he went, countless dead bodies were broken into two pieces, blood sprayed, and Naruto's body was also covered with blood. However, he didn't know it. The expression on his face was indifferent and cold, and he seemed to have found the feeling of decisive killing in the ninja world. Although these dead bodies in front of him could not resist the attack of his pure body technique, but this kind of wanton killing, the feeling of cutting down, also made him re-experience the prosperous years in the Hokage world. The difference is that the fighting here is just a one-sided slaughter. With Naruto's physical quality, even if he fought like this for a day, he would not be exhausted. His body had already been tempered to be extremely powerful. These were just dead bodies that evolved from ordinary people, and they could not be a threat to him at all. However, under the restriction of being unable to use chakra, although Naruto's attacks are fatal everywhere, but the number of opponents is too large, and it is impossible to kill them. In just a short time, Naruto's feet have fallen close to 100 dead bodies. Despite this, the surrounding dead bodies continued to flow towards Naruto, as if endless. After driving for a while, the off-road vehicle finally stopped behind Mami and others. The girls got off the car one after another and ran to the front of the battlefield where Naruto was. Seeing Naruto flying back and forth, they took a deep breath. How can it be? Naruto suddenly disappeared just now, but appeared here in an instant. How did he get here over the distance of several hundred meters? And the countless dead bodies lying on the ground also proved that he had appeared here long before everyone's car and fought. How can Naruto's speed be faster than the car in the Mercedes-Benz? Moreover, in what way did he suddenly disappear just now? Who is he? What method did he use? Is he the legendary Superman? An alien, or God? The girls were also completely frightened by this scene of Naruto. They never thought that Naruto would have such power. At this moment, they have long lost the ability to think in their hearts. Yako was the first to react. She knew that Naruto's strength was strong, but at this time, Naruto's strength was several times stronger than before. It's not something ordinary people can do. Moreover, how did he suddenly disappear just now? In Yako's eyes, Naruto has become a mystery. This mystery, since the outbreak of the disaster, seems to be getting deeper and deeper. Watching Naruto's battle, a rush of blood rose in Yako's heart. Holding the long oak knife in her hand, her body also trembled with excitement. The feeling of wanton killing must be very cool. Naruto, I really envy you. At this moment, some dead bodies on the edge, unable to reach Naruto, set their targets on these stunned policemen. Seeing a group of dead bodies coming towards them, the police seemed to be infected by Naruto's actions, and their whole body felt blood boiling. The next moment, they clenched the weapons in their hands and rushed towards the death kick door. Since most of the dead bodies were attracted by Naruto, there were not many dead bodies coming towards the police. After the crowd rushed up, these dead bodies that were slow to respond and not fast were all beaten down to the ground with blood. Meat splattered all over the place. The scene was chaotic for a while. Yako also rushed into the group of dead bodies with an oak-long sword. With her kendo cultivation, one person would not be afraid even if she dealt with a dozen or so dead bodies at the same time. Moreover, Yako, who was aroused by Naruto, was full of blood in her heart. At this time, the combat power is rising steadily. Although he is only an ordinary long oak knife in his hand, he can smash the head of a dead body every time he swings it. Her heroic appearance also dazzled everyone around her. Besides the blonde magical boy, there was actually such a powerful purple-haired girl. When did these young people become so powerful? Nagata pulled his daughter back step by step. In such a chaotic scene, he had to ensure her daughter's safety. However, her daughter seemed to be very excited. She couldn't hold it at all. She threw off her hand and rushed forward. At this moment of excitement, Naruto, who was fighting in the dead group, suddenly shouted, "Everyone, don't come here. All retreat. There are too many of them. I will hold them all by myself first, and you quickly retreat with others. To safety." Everyone was stunned. Naruto roared again, "Go back to me. Do you understand?" Everyone was shocked. Yes. Subconsciously, they seemed to obey the leader's orders, and a group of policemen all shouted, "Naruto, you have to be careful." Yanyi and the others also knew that Naruto's force was very powerful. After seeing his inhuman power, they were also full of confidence in him. In the car, ready to leave. At this time, Yazi was still fighting in the group of dead bodies. Naruto hurriedly moved to her side and commanded, "Senior Yazi, hurry up and leave by car, just leave it to me alone." Quote. Yako smiled slightly and said, "It's okay, Naruto, let me fight side by side with you, let you be here alone, let me retreat, but I will feel sorry for it. But it's very dangerous here, Yakuzi-senpai, you should evacuate with everyone." Naruto was surprised when he heard this, and quickly persuaded him. Although he himself can maintain an undefeated situation, as a girl's Yakuza, but it's different. She doesn't have chakra in her body. Even if her physical fitness is stronger than that of ordinary people, it is definitely not that strong. It is very likely that she will encounter an accident if she is not careful. Under such circumstances, how could Naruto be willing to stay? However, Yako is now in the midst of the thrill of killing. Hearing this, he smiled softly, "Naruto, don't think of me too weakly. After all, I am also a kendo celebrity and once won the national championship. And the current strength is even further than before." Naruto frowned slightly. "That won't work either, if something happens to you." "Naruto, are you caring about me?" Yazi suddenly interrupted him and laughed. "Although it feels good to be cared about by you, but the feeling of being underestimated by you also makes me very uncomfortable." Chapter 474 Shadow Dance Leaf. As soon as Yazi finished speaking, her figure rushed out like a breeze, and the long oak sword flashed in a series, and immediately knocked out the dead bodies in front of her. It's a pity that she uses a wooden knife, and its lethality is really limited. Unless it is aimed at the head, it is difficult to kill the enemy. Naruto is helpless. Although Yako usually treats people gently, she is actually very proud inside, and Naruto has also discovered some strange things about her. For example, during the battle, she will be very excited. Murder is also very strong. It was like the state of Yazi waving a long knife recklessly, her whole body overflowing with murderous aura, her long purple hair fluttering in the wind, blood splattered everywhere, and her school uniform was also stained with Madaramadera's blood. "It's alright, Senpai Yako." Naruto saw that she was fighting happily and didn't want to disturb her nature, but there were more and more dead bodies around, and he was almost surrounded by 3 layers and 3 layers of the two of them. After all, Yazi is just an ordinary person. Even if the swordsmanship is like a god, his physical strength is always limited. Unlike himself, the powerful strength and physical strength honed in the world of Hokage can carry out crazy battles even without chakra. "No, it's not enough." Yazi turned back and grinned slightly. A bloodthirsty smile flashed on her face. Her expression was full of murderous intent, and Naruto was slightly surprised. What's wrong with her? In this way, it is like an evil villain caught in the thrill of killing, and the gentle smile on his face that belongs to usual is gone. Naruto flashed, suddenly appeared beside her, grabbed her arm, and shouted, "Sister Yako. Stop it. Leave it to me here, you can retreat quickly." However, Yako frowned slightly, and she was very dissatisfied when Naruto suddenly stopped her from fighting. "Naruto, I like fighting too, why do you have to stop me?" "Sister Yazi, look at it clearly. If you continue to immerse yourself in it, we will only be surrounded more and more tightly, and it will be difficult to escape in the end. While I can send you out now, it will be too late if it is too late." Naruto pulled stay, she said. Just as Naruto spoke, the surrounding dead bodies rushed up frantically, and countless arms and mouths bit towards the two of them. "I don't have that much time." Naruto suddenly stretched out his hand and embraced the slender waist of the child, and then his body jumped up to a distance of more than 3 meters, kicking out repeatedly, and the dead body below the group counted the points on the head, and the body flew out of the encirclement of the dead body like a flying dragon. When he landed, he was still slightly shocked. Jump more than 3 meters on the ground. And it can also leap dozens of meters on the head of a dead body. I'm afraid this is really not something that humans can do, right? Naruto. Yazi opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but when she looked up, she saw Naruto's indisputable look, and in her blue eyes, there seemed to be an irresistible momentum. Hurry up and retreat. This is an order. At this time, Naruto couldn't help showing the momentum he had when he was the 6th generation of Hokage. So strong. He seemed to have a power that could explode at any time. Standing beside him, looking at him was like looking up at a high mountain. The gap in this momentum was completely beyond his own kendo momentum. This is the level difference. Yako was awakened by the shock. She stared blankly at Naruto's profile, as if she didn't know what to say. She didn't come back to her senses until the dead bodies in front were rushing towards this side. She looked a little complicated and nodded slightly. Yes. I'll retreat now. It was an aura that people couldn't help but surrender to. She practiced kendo for many years and participated in countless tournaments, big and small, but she had never felt this kind of aura in anyone, not even her own family. His father had never had such a strong aura. With this momentum alone, he can be overwhelmed and unable to refute. Naruto, who exactly are you? Yako put away the knife and ran back, full of curiosity about Naruto. Naruto, you have to be careful. Finally, she shouted at Naruto from a distance. Naruto let out a slight sigh of relief, and finally pushed the Yako away. Although her strength was good, she was still too tender. If she was by her side, she wouldn't be able to perform at all. Moreover, these dead bodies will be infected when they are bitten and caught, and Naruto must always pay attention to the situation of Yako. In this state, Naruto can't fight with peace of mind at all. Now it's finally time to show off. Naruto turned his head and glanced at Yazi, who was running towards the off-road vehicle, and an excited smile flashed on his face. So, just let yourself have a good time. Naruto put away the dagger in his hand, and clenched his fists tightly. Raised his head, his eyes were fixed on the army of dead bodies rushing in front of him, and the corners of his mouth evoked a slight arc of excitement. Suddenly, his figure rushed up to meet the dead body in front of him, and then suddenly kicked the dead body in front of him into the air, more than 10 meters high. With a step, Naruto's figure also jumped high, and suddenly appeared behind the dead body in midair. The arms clasped together and strangled the entire dead body. The next moment, the two of them were on top of each other, and their bodies suddenly spun at an extremely violent speed. Shadow Dance Leaves. One of the mysteries of Konoha Taijutsu. This trick has been learned by Naruto in the Hokage world. At this moment, even if there is no chakra, he can display it perfectly. The bodies of the two were spinning rapidly, and the dead body was tightly restrained by Naruto, unable to move at all. In the high-speed rotation, the bodies of the two seemed to be turned into an electric drill, and a violent wind swept away all around. Come. Below, it was the group of dead bodies who were screaming, raising their heads and completely unaware of the danger in the sky. In the next instant, Naruto spun like a tornado hurricane, smashing towards the dead masses below. Boom! At the moment of landing, Naruto let go of the dead body in his hand, and his body dodged to the side. And in the same place, there was a loud explosion, which was like a thunder in the flat ground, and the ground of the entire street could not help shaking. The gravel flew, accompanied by a large piece of flesh and blood that was smashed into slag, and spread around. Chapter 475 Out of Danger. The rapid rotation and the strength and speed of falling from a height, the destructive power it carried, directly smashed all the dead bodies within a circle of more than 10 meters into pieces. Dozens and hundreds of dead bodies disappeared in this terrifying blow. After Naruto landed, he looked at the scattered scene in the field and shook slightly. These people were originally ordinary humans, but after they became dead bodies, they had to accept the fate of being crushed. Where did these dead bodies come from? And what was it that caused them to change? Naruto couldn't figure it out, and was confused. At this time, Yazi, who was about to get into the car, had already heard the movement behind her. When she looked back and saw the scene of Naruto performing the shadow dance leaf, she couldn't help shaking her whole body. All the retreating humans also saw this bizarre scene. Superman. This is absolutely Superman. Disaster has occurred, but has God finally sent Superman to save mankind? Such a thought arose in everyone's heart. Looking at Naruto's tall back and his dazzling golden hair in the dark, a glimmer of hope rose in their hearts for this desperate world. Humans, there is still salvation. Naruto. In the police car, Mommy, who was retreating with her father, saw this scene through the rear window, and her heart was moved. This is his man. It's the man you love. Seeing how majestic he was fighting to the death alone, as if he was himself, an incomparable sense of pride rose in his heart. That boy, Mami's father, Nakauka Nagata, was also deeply shocked. Since Naruto appeared, the things he showed have been shocking beyond measure. Even he, a policeman, the director of the department, was also deeply shocked by this scene. He looked at Mommy and couldn't help asking, "How did you and him know each other?" Seeing that her father was also shocked by her own man, Mommy couldn't help but secretly rejoiced, her face slightly yuhi, taking advantage of the retreat time. It was like her father once again explaining how she met Naruto. Although, she had talked to her father for a long time, but at that time, she didn't listen to her father's disdainful attitude, right? Okay, now, Naruto's performance is like Superman, who dares to underestimate him? Konoha Whirlwind. Konoha Whirlwind. Konoha Steel Fist. Naruto performed the Hokage world's physical skills one by one. These physical skills were not difficult for him to perform, and because there were no other living people around him, he had completely let go of his hands and feet. At the place, the dead bodies flew into the air one after another, smashed down, and became a pile of minced meat. Finally, the retreating team behind him had left here, and without being threatened by the army of dead bodies here for the time being, Naruto leapt. His body jumped to a height of more than 10 meters, and he jumped out of the encirclement of dead bodies in an instant. Seeing that the dead bodies were still catching up, Naruto took out 5 self-made detonating talismans from his body and sprinkled them on the road in front of him. Naruto smiled lightly, stretched out his hand to make a slight seal, and said softly, "Boom." Boom, 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 boom. The sound of the explosion was deafening, and the flames pierced the night sky. The power of the 5 self-made detonating talismans exploded, directly blasting a horizontal ditch more than 2 meters deep on the ground of the street. Naruto didn't even look at it, turned around and chased in the direction where Yako and the others left. The aftermath of the explosion dissipated, and in the smoke and dust, all the dead bodies were standing in front of the horizontal ditch, unable to move forward. There are too many dead bodies. Although Naruto can continue to fight, he is not nostalgic for this kind of unilateral slaughter battle. His purpose is just to let the people retreating from the rear leave safely. At this time, everyone has left safely, and their mission is completed. Next, let's go to the round with Yazi and the others. Also, Mommy seemed to be safe, which comforted him, and his biggest worry was gone. In a large underground parking lot. The evacuees hid here. In the underground parking lot, only cars are usually there. After the disaster, most of the infected dead bodies are also wandering outside, and the dead bodies in the vicinity have been attracted to other places long ago, so everyone entered here very safely and smoothly. The off-road vehicle was parked in the middle of the underground parking lot, and all the girls jumped out of the car. Phew, I can finally catch my breath. Shizuka patted her bulging chest, glanced at the pitch-black parking lot around her, frowned slightly and said in fear, "I don't know if there are any lights here. It's so dark all around, it always feels dangerous." There shouldn't be any danger. This is the parking lot. Even if there are infected dead bodies, we can easily kill them with so many of us. Moreover, there seems to be a light switch there. Saya heard Shizuka after getting out of the car. The words replied. She walked to the side of the parking lot, fumbled on the wall for a while, and found the light switch with a snap. Suddenly, the underground parking lot lights up in an instant. The many refugees around were also exposed to the lights. Almost everyone's faces are filled with anxiety and fear. The moment the lights are turned on, there seems to be a little comfort on people's faces. Perhaps, in this last disaster, the familiar lights will also let people feel a little hope. Shay returned to the girls and sighed slightly. Now we are temporarily safe. I don't know what happened to Naruto. Naruto, he'll be fine, he should be there soon. Yako said with a slight smile. Yeah, Naruto is simply too powerful. Those dead bodies can't help him at all. Otome stood up and waved her small fist excitedly. At this moment, Mommy, who had just got off the car on the other side, also heard the discussion about Naruto here. After talking to her father, she walked over. Hello, are you talking about Naruto just now? Mommy greeted everyone politely. Sister Mommy. The world couldn't help shouting when she saw her. It's great that you're okay. Naruto has been very worried about you. It was you that I saw just now. The rest of the people couldn't help but look at Mommy. Was she the girl Naruto said was the urgent need to come to the rescue? Chapter 476 Hope in Despair. Just when the girls were chatting happily with each other, Naruto finally appeared at the entrance of the underground parking lot. Because of the previous battle, his body was covered with blood from the dead body. At this time, all the white shorts on his body were dyed Yuhi. He had to take off the shorts, revealing the strong muscles of the upper body, and walked in. When they were in the parking lot, someone in the crowd had already recognized Naruto's identity, the hero who fought against the terrifying dead body with one person. Wow, Superman is here. The hero is here. Someone couldn't help but exclaim, and the girls who were in fear couldn't help but feel dizzy when they saw Naruto's excellent figure. Yuhi opened his mouth and exhaled softly. So handsome. The handsome blonde guy. He saved us. He's so handsome. If it wasn't for the wrong atmosphere now, they would probably have rushed forward like chasing stars. Mingray threw away his clothes and slowly walked into the parking lot, and came to Mommy and Yazuyanye who were looking at him. All the girls stared at him blankly, as if they had seen a hero or prince whom they had not seen for a long time, and finally, Mommy swooped into Naruto's arms with a soft sob. Naruto saw her crying and rushed over, smiled and welcomed her into his arms. Listening to the soft cry, he stretched out a hand and patted her soft jade back, softly comforting. It's all right, I'm here, with me, I'll protect you. Oofily so, I was so scared. I thought I'd never see you again. If you hadn't come at the critical moment, I would have left you. It's great, it's really great. As Mommy cried, she hugged his waist tightly with both hands, venting the feelings that had been suppressed for a long time in her heart. At this moment, she was a little incoherent. At this moment, the girls behind him also seemed to understand something. Especially Shiji and Yanyi, they have known Mommy for a long time. At that time, they only remembered that Mommy said that she was Naruto's sister, but at this time, seeing her crying in Naruto's arms, she was even more like a little lover. However, in this apocalypse, they have no time to think about these issues anymore. A long time, Mommy raised Yuhi's beautiful eyes and stared at Naruto's face tightly. It's only been a day since she hadn't seen him. It was like a year later. Seeing him, she was really relieved. Naruto smiled slightly, stretched out his hand and held her shoulder. Okay, Mommy, you are also a policeman. Your previous performance was very brave, and now you will be laughed at by everyone. Mommy was slightly startled, and then she noticed that not only Yanyi Yazi and the others were staring at her, but everyone else in the parking lot was also looking at her. She couldn't help but feel embarrassed, and her face Jonan couldn't stop pouring out a magnificent Yuhi halo. Seeing Mammy's expression, the girls couldn't help but envy her. It turns out that Naruto and Mommy have such a good relationship. Are they not siblings? But now it doesn't look like it at all. The world is thinking. Yanyi stared at Naruto closely, and also looked like he wanted to throw himself into his arms. Otome pouted slightly, as if she already understood the relationship between the two in her heart. Really eccentric, Naruto, she thought to herself. At this time, Yazi stood up and asked, Naruto, what should we do next? How do we survive in this world with so many people? This is a very troublesome problem. Hearing this, Naruto pondered for a while. Indeed, as Yazi said, in this apocalyptic world, the survival of human beings has become lingering. There are basically no people who can survive alone by their own strength. Humanity must be united, in order to fight for a quiet paradise. However, in the current state, human beings must have some outstanding leaders to stand up to show everyone the way and lead everyone to survive together. While thinking, a middle-aged voice suddenly came from the side. Everyone, I'm Mami's father and the police chief in this area of Beiju City. According to the previous telephone contact, almost all of them have appeared nationwide. In this situation, there are fewer and fewer people alive. Now that the national government has dispatched the army, we can now strive for enough strength to protect ourselves. Wait for the rescue of the country. Dad, is what you said true? Mommy said with surprise when she saw her father coming over and heard his words. If this is the case, once the army arrives, the cities the dead are all wiped out. Naruto frowned slightly after hearing this. He knew that things were not as simple as Mommy said. Like now, less than 1% of the people in the city survived, and almost all of them were infected. The dead body, let's not say whether everyone can survive until the army attacks without being attacked by the dead body. It is very difficult for the army to get here. After all, there are already dead bodies all over the world, and the march of the army will inevitably encounter great obstacles. How many troops will be able to reach here? It is better to ask for others than to ask for yourself. Of course Naruto will not wait for others to rescue him. Slowly shaking his head, he pondered, the most important thing is to temporarily find a safe place first. The underground parking lot here is actually not safe. The dead bodies outside are all moving. Once there are a large number of dead bodies, if you discover this place, the consequences are absolutely unimaginable. Quote. Well, you're right. Nakauka Nagata nodded and said, but there are too many people to act together on a large scale. In my opinion, it is better to escape in small groups and distribute the number of people well. Let everyone leave in an organized manner and find a safe place. Quote. However, if everyone is not together in this way, isn't the chance of survival getting smaller and smaller? Someone next to him questioned. Nakauka Nagata shook his head. Actually, it's not like this. There are hundreds of thousands of survivors, and with so many people fleeing together, if they encounter a large army of dead bodies, it will almost be the same as before. People form a team and go to find a safe place separately. Quote. But in this case, how will everyone get in touch then? Someone asked again. Nagata sighed. In this world, no one knows what tomorrow will be like. All we can do now is to live a day, at least there is hope. Chapter 477 Find a Safe Place. His words made everyone fall into silence. Yes, in this world where dead bodies are rampant everywhere and full of despair, is there really a way for human beings to survive? I'm afraid the only thing that can be relied on at the moment is the army, right? But how will everyone survive until the army arrives? Everyone was silent and stopped talking, only heavy sighs, as well as the cries of some children and the choking of women. Suddenly, Nagata looked at Naruto with a sincere look on his face. Naruto-kun, I have a request. Please speak. Naruto was stunned. Nagata looked at his daughter, took her hand, and a loving smile appeared on his face. My daughter, Mommy, she is still very young. I also know about her and you. I have been against your relationship before. I was prejudiced against you at that time, and I am really sorry for that. He bowed slightly to Naruto, and put Mami's jade hand in Naruto's palm, with a sincere and serious look on his face. Now I beg you to take my daughter out of here and find a safe one. Place, please. After Nagata finished speaking, his niece suddenly knelt down towards Naruto's feet, and kowtowed to him with the most solemn etiquette in Japan. I ask Naruto-kun to be fulfilled. Naruto and Mommy were both startled and quickly pulled him up. Mommy didn't expect her father to do such a thing for herself, and she couldn't help being moved, and tears welled up in her eyes. "Dad, you can leave with us too," she cried, holding her father's hand. Nagata slowly shook his head. "As a senior officer, how can I escape at this time? I have to stay here with everyone and protect everyone from retreating. This is the duty of a police officer." Quote. Naruto couldn't help but secretly admired it. As an ordinary person, it was really rare that he would stick to his position so much when he was unable to protect himself. No matter how much he opposed himself and Mommy before, this time it will no longer affect Naruto's impression of him. Mommy wanted to say more, but Nagata waved her hand to stop her from continuing. "Okay, I'll leave you to Naruto-kun, I'm very relieved. You guys should leave as soon as possible, and leave it to me here. Although I don't have the power of Naruto-kun, this evacuation can still be arranged." "Okay, besides, you don't have to worry about my safety. With so many police here, my self-protection is not a problem. I will find a way to notify you when I am safe." After speaking, he turned and left Naruto's side. Mommy had no way to refute, and sighed slightly as she watched her father turn and walk away. Her mother was in the capital of Tokyo, where she could get quick protection even in the event of a disaster. The only thing she was worried about was her father, but he didn't leave with him and Naruto. "Okay, let's evacuate here quickly. Mommy, you must be hungry too. We have food in the car. You can share it with your father and colleagues, they have worked hard to fight." Naruto bowed his head. He looked at Mommy and said. Mommy nodded, and the girls had consciously taken out half of the food and water from the car at this time, and shared it with Mommy to the police officers who were sticking to their posts. After doing all this, several people got into the car and prepared to leave. Due to the addition of Mommy, the space in the car that could have been squeezed out is now completely insufficient. However, Naruto came up with a temporary solution. First, let Mommy and Yanyi sit together, and Guishin lies on the back seat of the car. On the laps of the girls, he himself got on the roof of the off-road vehicle and sat cross-legged on the roof. In the eyes of everyone, Naruto and his party left the underground parking lot, leaving everyone with a sense of disappointment. Naruto in their hearts is like a beam of hope in this hellish world. Looking at him, everyone will feel my heart is full of hope. Now, the departure of the hero also makes everyone feel extremely lost. Mommy left her father and followed the man she loved. She also had concerns in her heart, but at least she still carried her father's blessing. It was past 12 o'clock in the middle of the night. Mommy was tired all day, and finally fell asleep holding Yanyi in her arms. Yanyi turned to look at Mommy leaning on her shoulder, not knowing what it was like. Mammy's father's words have been very clear before. I'm afraid her relationship with Naruto is already the same as his own. "Hey, Naruto, you are too." The car kept moving forward, and in the city shrouded in darkness, only the lights of their car were moving, and the whole world seemed to be silent, leaving only the living creatures in their car. Suddenly, Shizuka whispered slightly, "No, I'm running out of gasoline." Everyone in the car was shocked. Shay frowned and asked, "How long can I drive with the remaining fuel?" 10 kilometers. Shizuka looked down at the table below. Shay pondered for a while. "I remember passing a gas station when I came here before. It should be within 10 kilometers from here. I still remember the route." "That's great. Let's hurry over there," Shizuka said happily. Hee, this genius has an excellent memory. Now you know how good I am." Saya laughed. "Yeah, got it, Saya, you are a talented girl," said Otome, who was already familiar with everyone sitting in the back row. At this time, Naruto, who was sitting on the roof of the car, heard the laughter in the car, and the corner of his mouth couldn't help showing a smile. After being suppressed by this cruel world for so long, it was really not easy to hear the laughter of the girls. Woolen cloth. Next, if it goes well, you can temporarily find a stable place to live, and then step by step to study the cause of the infection of these dead bodies. Maybe you can find some key points. It's just that the chakra that can be used in the body is really limited. and he can't leave these girls, otherwise, he wants to go to the world to see the situation. Sitting cross-legged on the roof of the car, the chakra in Naruto is slowly recovering. After a period of time, the chakra that has been used up before has finally recovered. Although there is only a trace, if there is no trace of chakra, just now there is no way to save mommy and the others. Why? When will more chakras be activated? Naruto's mind slowly sank into his body. Chapter 478 Ray in Despair. In a gas station, next to a vending machine. Miyamoto Ray carefully parked here on a motorcycle, looking at the gas station. There was no sign of anyone, not even a salesperson. Maybe he was infected, maybe he ran away. She finally found this gas station, but unfortunately she didn't have any money with her. Without money, she couldn't use the vending machine to refuel. In desperation, she had no choice but to look at the small supermarket in the gas station. It seemed that there were no more living people. Now I can only go to the silver stage to get some money. In this legal society, doing so is tantamount to stealing. However, the whole world has fallen into despair, and the society has collapsed. Where does the legal system exist? Thinking of this, she felt a little relieved and walked to the small supermarket. Suddenly, just when she was about to step into the supermarket, a figure suddenly appeared from behind her. She looked terrified and was about to turn around, but she felt her body tighten, and her whole body was controlled by the other party. Dead body. Is it finished? Am I done? Has it finally come to an end? At this moment, Miyamoto Ray's heart was extremely desperate. However, just when she thought her body was about to be ripped apart and bitten, a rude man's voice suddenly sounded beside her ear. Hey, little girl. I finally waited for you. Miyamoto Ray was shocked. With her neck strangled, she turned her head with difficulty and looked at the man who restrained her. The face is rough and full of stubble, and the most conspicuous is the big gold kiba that comes out of his stinky mouth when he laughs wildly. You, who are you? Lee asked in horror. Who do you care about Lao Su? Dajin Kiba was tall and his arms were thicker than Lee's thighs, and Lee couldn't resist Lee's body tightly around her. Even though Ray was a member of the school's spearmanship club and possessed good fighting skills, in front of this man's strength, she, who was first restrained, could not resist. Then what are you going to do? She struggled to cry out, and she couldn't help but feel a little bad in her heart. Although there was a moment of comfort in her heart when she learned that he was not a dead body, but at this moment, seeing when I saw his ugly face, I felt the evil spirit of the ruffian all over him, and my heart fell into the abyss of despair. Such a person, at first glance, knows that they are unsettled members of the underworld. If they are caught by such people, the consequences may be worse than dying in the hands of those dead bodies. Daikin Kiba smiled and said, Little girl, I have been hiding in this gas station for a long time and dare not go out. This world has changed too fast. The whole world is full of those terrifying zombies. You should be from these zombies. Did you escape? It's not easy. But, little girl, let's hang out with Lao Su from now on. We can be very happy together, ha ha ha. Bastard. Let me go. Lee's heart froze when she heard his words. Sure enough, this kind of underworld member is a guy who doesn't care about anyone's feelings at all, and is even crazier than a dead body. Let go of you. Are you kidding me, little girl? I haven't had sex for a few days. It's really not easy to meet a woman in this world. And a girl who looks so pretty like you, how can you let go? Speaking of which, are you still in the same place? Daikin Kiba grabbed Lee's neck from behind, took out a dagger in his other hand, and gently shook it in front of Lee's eyes a few times. You have to cooperate, otherwise, I will slit your throat. Daikin Kiba smiled viciously. The dagger gently slid across the school uniform on Lee's body, and the sharp dagger easily pierced Lee's chest. His collar was all drawn from top to bottom. Ahead, there is a faint light, and in the distance, there are countless darkness. Naruto's off-road vehicle was driving alone on the main road, passing quickly by the surrounding dead bodies. When the dead bodies reacted, the car had already driven into the distance. It's almost there. There are street lights ahead, it seems that there is a gas station there. Shizuka was driving the car and suddenly exclaimed in surprise. Everyone in the car couldn't help but be shocked, and they all looked forward. Sure enough, it was a gas station. Wrong. Anyone else? At this time, everyone saw Rei, who was being restrained by Daikin Kiba from a distance, struggling hard. The next moment, the off-road vehicle rushed into the gas station directly. Naruto also opened his eyes and noticed the two figures in his sight. At this moment, the clothes on Lee's chest had just been torn by the dagger, and a pair of huge hooligans suddenly jumped out, bound by the flesh-colored hood, standing proudly. Daikin Kiba swallowed, seeing such a beautiful view, his palm holding the dagger trembled slightly. What a superb woman! If it weren't for the fact that he was holding her neck in one hand and a dagger in the other, he would have grabbed the pair of house breasts long ago. Hey, she's a real virgin. Daikin Kiba laughed excitedly, the stench from his mouth sprayed directly onto Rei's face from behind. Miyamoto Rei's neck was strangled, making it difficult to move, and even breathing became difficult. She could only endure the stench and struggled vigorously. Quick, let me go. Please let me go. She really didn't want to lose her chastity. If she was asked to give her body to such a man, she would rather die. Bah, stupid woman. You'll be so rude later, you won't ask me to let go when you scream. Dajin Kiba's eyes were bloodshot, and he exclaimed excitedly, come on. Let Lao Su do it. In such a desperate world, it is very rare for you to meet a big man like Lao Su. I'm afraid there will be no living people in the future. Stupid. Lee couldn't help shaking her whole body, and her heart was full of despair at the same time. Yes, the world has collapsed. On the way, she has not even encountered a living person. Will human beings really perish in the future, as he said? Even Kamuro Taka, a childhood sweetheart, has fallen into the zombie group, and now he is the only one left, in such an environment. Perhaps, as he said, it was a blessing to meet a living person like him. Lee stared blankly at the front, her hands were slowly put down, she gave up resistance. Chapter 479 Come with us. Hey, stinky bitch, have you finally figured it out? Ha, it's also your blessing to have fun with Lao Su. Dajin Kiba laughed strangely, his excitement was beyond words, and he was swept away by the bathing fire with his mind. He didn't care about anything. He threw the dagger in his hand to the ground next to him, and the big palm grabbed Lee's raised chest all at once. Ha, there will definitely be an EPUB here. I didn't expect that I would meet such a superb girl. Ah, Dajin Kiba laughed wildly and tried to press his hand to Lee's chest, but he didn't expect it to be there. Before he could get his wish, there was a sudden tingling in the palm of his hand, and he cried out in pain. He could no longer grab Lee's body and stepped back. Yes, who is it? Daikin Kiba cried out in horror. Only then did he realize that there was a white dagger stuck in his palm. A kind of stall. Looking around, he finally saw a car with lights on in front of the gas station speeding towards here in the dark night. On the roof of the car, a young man stood quietly, his blonde hair fluttering in the wind. Daikin Kiba couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, and then he realized that something was wrong, and hurriedly endured the pain and rushed towards Miyamoto Rei, who was bending over and coughing constantly, trying to catch her. And Miyamoto Rei just reacted at this time. Before she could see what was going on, she turned her head and saw the big grim face of Daikin Kiba. She hurriedly ran away, coughing. With a swoosh, Naruto, who was standing on the roof of the car, suddenly jumped high, and the next moment, he suddenly appeared in front of Daikin Kiba, blocking his way. Boom! He stretched out a foot, a simple foot, and slammed into his big face. What? With a cry of pain, before Daikin Kiba could catch Rei, Naruto kicked her out. He fell to the ground with a bang, and he rolled on the ground with one hand covering his face, and his mouth was screaming in pain. Naruto walked over to him, suddenly grabbed one of his arms, and then reached out and pulled out the dagger that flew into his palm. Kai, with blood splashing all over, Daikin Kiba screamed again. Shut up, garbage. Naruto frowned, raised his foot and stomped on his stomach with a bang, slamming his strong body into a dent. Pff'd a mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth. Gajan Kiba's mouth suddenly opened wide, and he couldn't help but suffocate in pain. He wanted to scream, but he seemed to have no strength in his throat, so he couldn't scream at all. Withdrawing his feet, Naruto looked at him whose eyes hurt as if he was about to faint, and ignored him. He turned around and came to Lee, who was stunned, stretched out his hand, smiled slightly, and said, "Are you all right?" Lee stared at Naruto blankly. At this moment, she almost felt like she was in a dream. She was actually saved. Just a moment ago, he was in great danger of being violated, but at this moment, he saw the guy fall to the ground and groan in pain. This feeling as if from hell to heaven made her cry with joy. Seeing the smile on Naruto's face when he stretched out his hand, she finally couldn't help but threw herself into his arms and burst into tears. He had to catch her with both hands, and he couldn't help sighing slightly when he saw how she was crying so badly in his arms. At this time, all the girls also got out of the car and came to Naruto's side. Seeing Minamoto Rei crying so hard, they all seemed to be infected by her emotions, and the feeling of grief came spontaneously. In this world full of despair, how many tragedies like Rei will happen? Fortunately, this time Naruto came, and she was finally out of danger. However, when will the despair brought by this world come to an end? Everyone could not help but fell silent. For a while, only Lee's cry and the pained cry of the person who fell to the ground were left in the gas station. After a long time, Rei finally stopped crying. Naruto's chest was already soaked. He had taken off his shirt before and was now shirtless. Rei's tears were all over the skin on his chest. Leaving Naruto's chest slowly, Rei stopped crying. Yuhi's beautiful eyes were swollen from crying. She looked at the girls beside her, then looked at Naruto, and suddenly found herself cold. Yeah. With a soft cry, Lee suddenly stretched out her hand to cover her chest. The two huge mountains of meat that were covered under the flesh-colored hood trembled and were already soaked by her own tears. The next moment, she couldn't help but look Yuhi, and hurriedly turned around. At this moment, Shay walked over and held Lee's shoulder. "Lee, don't worry, we're here, it's all right now." Minamoto Rei nodded slightly. The school uniform on her body had been cut from the front, and it was really unsightly to hang on her body now, and after a period of escape, her clothes and skirts had become dirty. It's uncomfortable to stick to the body. "You guys, why are you here?" Lee asked softly after calming down a bit. "Our car ran out of gas. I just found out that there is a gas station here, so I came here. I didn't expect you to be here too, but I'm really lucky to meet you here, right? Where's Kamuro Takaya?" Saya asked. Li Wenyan sighed slightly. "Xiaoxi has already." Shay was shocked, and his expression couldn't help but stay. "What did you say?" "Li, what happened to him in Xiaoxi?" Li covered her forehead in pain and sighed slightly. "Before he fell into the group of dead bodies, I guess he has already, hey. It's impossible, right? How could this be?" Shay couldn't believe it. Her heart was full of disbelief. She used to be so fond of Xiaoxi, why did he die suddenly? This is really unacceptable. Li shook her head helplessly. The world has collapsed. No matter what happens, it's not surprising. Naruto, who heard their conversation, walked over, patted the two of them on the shoulders and sighed slightly. "We can't give up hope, although this world has collapsed into this, but if even we humans give up, it will really there is no hope of surviving. No matter how difficult it is, we must survive." The two girls were shocked when they heard it. Naruto smiled. "Lee, come with us from now on." Chapter 480 Tackle Daikin Kiba. Lee stared blankly at Naruto's smiling face. At this moment, she seemed to see the rising sun of tomorrow, and the despair and numbness in her heart seemed to melt away at this moment. "Thank you, Naruto classmate." Minamoto Rei bowed deeply to him. "When I was bending over, because I was only wearing a hood on my chest, it just sagged down." The two jades and breasts swayed slightly in the air, and they all felt like they were about to fall. Fortunately, Naruto just glanced at it and stopped looking at it. He smiled lightly, stepped forward to help her, and gave a wink to the girls behind him. The girls understood, stepped forward to help her, and comforted her softly. Miyamoto Rei was originally with Komuro Takaya, but at this time she was reduced to here alone. Looking at her tired face, Naruto didn't have to think about how hard it was for her to escape here. It is not easy for a girl to survive in a world full of dangers everywhere. Kiba, who had fallen to the ground and couldn't moan any longer. Hey, you, what are you doing? Just now, did you hurt Lao Su? He lay on the ground and asked with a face full of fear. The funny thing was that he was still calling himself Lao Su. Naruto smiled lightly and didn't say a word. He stepped forward and kicked him in the stomach. With a bang, his body flew high, and he was kicked a dozen meters away like a football. What? With a scream, he felt that his waist was broken, and his stomach, kidneys, and liver seemed to be all tangled together, and the pain was so painful that he couldn't even breathe. Naruto walked towards him again, looking at the bloody, dying Daikin Kiba, and said with a disdainful smile, "You garbage, even feeding those zombies is still cheap for you." With that said, Naruto squatted down, stretched out his hand and lifted it lightly, and directly lifted his 200 jins of meat in his hand. Then, he walked towards the dead bodies that were walking beside the gas station. When Daikin Kiba saw this, he was horrified, and he didn't care about the pain, and he begged for mercy. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Please, please don't kill me. I don't want to feed you. Zombies, don't. His screams attracted several dead bodies next to the gas station, who slowly walked towards Naruto. Hey, you bastard, aren't you afraid that they will eat you too? Ah, don't. Daikin Kiba screamed. His body was thrown forward by Naruto. It flew out like throwing garbage, and slammed into the group of dead bodies with a bang. The dead were angry, and after being stunned for a while, they finally sensed the breath of the living, and they opened their mouths and bit down on Daikin Kiba fiercely. Daikin Kiba was also a good fighter in the past. At this time, with all his strength, he pushed away a dead body with one palm. He was just about to escape, but was bitten by a dead body behind him. Neck. Ah, you disgusting bastards. Die for me. Daikin Kiba didn't know where the strength came from, suddenly opened his mouth and bit the neck of the dead body behind him, and the two directly exchanged bite. The blood and flesh splattered everywhere, and the scene was extremely tragic. Naruto didn't look at his futile struggle, and sighed slightly. If a person like him was dedicated to survival, he wouldn't have fallen to this point. It can only be considered that he was unlucky and met himself. Naruto shook his head and returned to the girls. At this time, the girls had already seen the scene where Naruto threw the big gold Kiba directly into the dead body, and they couldn't help but relieve their hatred. Although the younger Guei-shin was a little scared, at least Miyamoto Rei was very relieved. Yes, she was almost insulted by that big gold Kiba before. If it weren't for Naruto and the others suddenly appearing, I'm afraid it would have been a tragedy in the end. Thank you, Miyamoto Rei said, thanking Naruto again. Naruto shook his head slightly, indicating that you are welcome. Turning to look at Shizuka, Naruto said, hurry up and refuel, the dead body over there has found us, we must leave quickly. Yeah, good Naruto. Shizuka nodded hurriedly, seeing that all the dead bodies around had been attracted by the screams of Daikin Kiba. She couldn't help shivering, and hurriedly ran to the vending machine to refuel. Fortunately, Shizuka still had some money on her body, which came in handy at this time. After putting the money in the automatic refueling machine, she refueled the car. At this time, all the girls had already got into the car one after another, and Naruto walked over to pick up the dagger that belonged to Daikin Kiba on the ground and held it in his hand. It was heavy, with a metallic texture, much better than the dagger he had carved the runes on. He smiled slightly and charged towards the group of dead bodies with the dagger in both hands. With his upper body naked, he directly killed him. A few minutes later, Naruto had cleaned up all the dead bodies around him, and the car was full at this time. Because Lee got into Naruto's car, her motorcycle was useless. The car started, and the off-road vehicle, which was fully filled with oil, drove out of the gas station with everyone in the car. Because of Rei's participation, the seats are completely insufficient. Although the power of the car is no problem, but now including Rei, Yanyi, Otome, Guixin, Sakai, Mami, Sei, Shizuka, Yuko, Ju, the individual is here. It was already very reluctant to sit 8 people before, but now I can't sit at all. Well, it seems that I'd better get on the roof of the car. Yazi gave up the seat, opened the car window, and rolled out directly while the car was driving. The girls let out a slight exclamation, but saw that the child had already flipped onto the roof of the car with a thud. Naruto, I'm coming up to get some air too, Yazi said, turning over and sitting on the roof of the car, wearing black stockings. Her slender legs were hanging outside the car and swaying slightly, because the car was also driving not very soon, facing the night wind. Her long purple hair fluttered back high. Naruto smiled lightly. It seems that it is necessary to find a bigger car. Sister Yazi, aren't you afraid of falling? I'm not as weak as you think, and with you around, I won't fall, right? She smiled at Naruto. Naruto was stunned for a moment, and then laughed. Yes, but only if you have to hurry up on me. Is it like this? Yako suddenly stretched out her arm and quietly took Naruto's arm.